Chapter 32:11. I didn't expect a ninth realm Taoist to show up. I'm honored, Yishuin said with a smile. Emperor God Silver Frost smiled faintly. Although I don't show up often, your status is enough for me to show up in person. He didn't refute Yishuin's words. Obviously, the Heaven Commerce Alliance had also discussed his matter internally. Obviously, the degree of importance they attached to him was constantly increasing. The original Golden Cicada Sage Emperor wasn't enough to continue to act as a liaison between the two sides, or perhaps a more powerful big shot plan to show up in person. After all, every transaction with Yishuin could reap great benefits. It was a win-win situation. Emperor Lord corpses were very rare. No matter where they were sold, there would be no shortage of demand. Not to mention that the Sky Commerce Alliance was in high demand. It was not enough for them to digest it internally, let alone sell it. I wonder what you were planning to sell or buy this time? Emperor God Silver Frost asked. I'm mainly planning to sell some Emperor Lord corpses. I wonder if you're interested? Yishuin said straightforwardly. Even with Emperor God Silver Frost's status and knowledge, his eyes couldn't help but light up when he heard this. It was not easy for him to come across some Emperor Lord corpses, let alone a few, because the Emperor Lord who could kill other Emperor Lords usually had their own forces behind them. Hence, the corpses of these Emperor Lords were often digested internally. Hence, it was very rare for them to see them. However, Yishuin was obviously different. He didn't have the strength to rely on any party. Even if he joined the Fortune God dynasty, it was almost like a subsidiary. This was the basis for the cooperation between the two parties. I'm interested. Of course, I'm interested. What kind of Emperor Lord corpses are you planning to sell? Emperor God Silver Frost asked directly. The price of different Emperor Lord corpses was naturally very different. The difference between the 6th and 7th Realm Emperor Lords was very big. Just these. Yishuin casually released the corpses of many Emperor Lords. Each of them was vivid and lifelike, as if they were still alive. Each of them contained an extremely terrifying aura. If Yishuin hadn't used a special sealing technique to seal them, their aura would have almost overturned the roof. No Emperor Lord could be an ordinary person, nor could they be underestimated. Among them, there was even the Gung Metal Tiger Emperor who had entered the 7th realm. How about these? Yishuin asked. As expected, all of them are commodities. Emperor God Silver Frost's eyes lit up. What do you want in exchange? Emperor God Silver Frost asked. At their level, although the usual transactions were mainly about the dragon's vein, not all of them were like that. They often involved other things. The mysterious creation pill and the dragon vein. What he needed the most right now was to increase his strength. Hence, the mysterious creation pill and the dragon vein were the most meaningful things to him. It was also the thing that could promote his current cultivation. He had read a lot of ancient books and handwritten notes in a martial creation pavilion. He had only memorized such a huge amount of knowledge, but he still needed a period of time to transform it into his own cultivation. He still needed the help of the mysterious space, and this could not be separated from the dragon's vein. The mysterious creation pill was something that could increase his strength in a short period of time. I believe that it won't be difficult for your alliance to obtain the mysterious creation pill, right? Yishuin said with a faint smile. That's true. It's indeed possible to obtain the mysterious creation pill. Emperor God Silver Frost did not hide it. Among the corpses that you provided, the most valuable is the body of the 7th Realm Emperor. How about this? I'll give you a price. How about a mysterious creation pill and 60 level 2 dragon's veins? Although the object of discussion was the corpse of an Emperor, Emperor God Silver Frost did not have the slightest emotional fluctuation. He did not feel any sympathy for the dead Emperor. The dead Emperor was no longer the same as him. All right. Yishuin nodded slightly. He calculated a little and understood that the price was very reasonable. Although he did not get a big bargain, he did not lose out either. A long-term transaction between two parties could not be at the expense of one party in the long run. That kind of transaction could not continue in the long run. In addition, I hope that you can provide me with a place to practice in seclusion. Is that possible? Yishuin asked. That's naturally not a problem. You can practice in seclusion in our headquarters. I guarantee that no one will disturb you. Emperor God Silver Frost immediately made a decision. To an outsider, it was impossible. However, to their trading volume, it was just a bonus. That's great. Yishuin didn't mind being tracked by Emperor Tian Yi. However, he didn't want Emperor Tian Yi to do anything to him while he was cultivating. Emperor Tian Yi couldn't do anything himself. However, it was entirely possible for him to make some noise to prevent Yishuin from cultivating safely. It was completely different in the Sky Commerce Alliance. Although Emperor Tian Yi was strong, he was obviously not comparable to a colossus like the Sky Commerce Alliance. Yishuin could not barge in without permission. It could not be any safer. The biggest advantage of the Sky Commerce Alliance was that they were willing to do anything as long as there were benefits. Please wait for a while. Someone will give you the dragon's vein and the mysterious creation pill in a while. Then, they will take you to the place where you practice in seclusion. I have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. Emperor God Silver Frost waved his hand and kept all the corpses of the Emperor Gods that Yishuin took out into his bag. After speaking, Emperor God Silver Frost disappeared into thin air. Obviously, he was in a hurry to go back to discuss with some people. Yishuin was not in a hurry. He waited while sipping his tea. Sure enough, after a while, the manager who led him here sent a space bag to Yishuin's hand. It contained the mysterious creation pill and 60 level 2 dragon's veins. Yishuin scanned it with his divine thoughts and knew that there was no problem. He immediately said, I think Emperor God Silver Frost must have told you. Take me to a quiet place for seclusion. Yes, Martial Emperor, please follow me. Under the guidance of this steward, Yishuin was led to a demi-plane, a microcosm. Just after entering, Yishuin already felt that there were many genre rays and enchantments in this demi-plane, separating this microcosm from the main plane outside. Sir, this is a half-bit wall in our headquarters for seclusion. Usually, only the Emperor Gods in our alliance have the opportunity to enter. This is the control method. I'll hand it over to you, said the manager. As he spoke, a light ball appeared in his hand. Then, this light ball flew to Yishuin. Yishuin grabbed it and absorbed it. This light ball recorded the control method of all the arrays and boundaries in the entire half-bit wall. It was also the main switch of all the arrays and boundaries. As long as he mastered this, no one could control the arrays and boundaries except him. It could be said that it was very safe. Obviously, the Sky Commerce Alliance was quite sincere. Emperor God Silver Frost said that in the future, this place will be given to Martial Emperor. In the future, Martial Emperor can come to any place in the Fortune Divine Capital for seclusion, continued the manager. In his heart, he was guessing how huge the amount of this transaction was. Otherwise, he would not give away such a so-called bonus for seclusion. It should be known that the construction of this half-bit wall took a lot of resources to finally build. It was very expensive. Usually, it would only be used by the Emperor Gods in the Alliance. It was very rare to give it to an outsider. All right, you can leave. I'm going to seclusion first, said Yishuin with a wave of his hand. Yes, Lord Martial Emperor. If you need anything, just call me, the steward quickly said. After saying that, he quickly retreated. Yishuin immediately entered the half-bit wall, sat cross-legged on the cloud bed, and conveniently closed the entire world. With the control core, all of this was very easy to do. After confirming that there were no other hidden doors or backups, Yishuin finally felt relieved and began to practice. Thinking about it, the Sky Commerce Alliance would not do such a stupid thing. Yishuin immediately took out the piece of paper that recorded the universe creation poem. He had to be careful. This was also a big deal. His first priority was to practice the universe creation poem. In terms of his current cultivation, he had just made a breakthrough. The possibility of advancing further in a short time was not great. If he wanted to raise his combat power to another level and be able to fight against Emperor Tian, there was no other possibility except for the universe creation poem. It was different from before. Previously, Yishuin did not have the dragon vein, so to a large extent, he could not fully play the role of the mysterious space. He could only rely on his own comprehension. His cultivation had reached this point, and his aptitude had long been promoted to the highest level along with the continuous improvement of his physical body. He was not inferior to others. Even so, it was completely different from when he had the help of the mysterious space. Even without the help of the mysterious space, it would be very difficult for him to understand the good fortune cosmic palm. This martial art even surpassed the heavenly venerables and was unique to the good fortune heavenly monarch. How could it be easy to cultivate it? In his body, a level 2 dragon vein flew into the air. Then, under the effect of a mysterious force, it began to burn fiercely, or perhaps a terrifying long river of energy poured into the mysterious space in Yishiwen's body. There seemed to be a light of wisdom flickering in his eyes. In his eyes, the martial arts will of the universe creation palm began to recover, and it was constantly evolving the universe creation palm again and again. Chapter 32:12. In that closed-door training world, the aura on Yi Shiwen's body was getting stronger and stronger. He simply flew directly into the air and continuously shot out palm after palm. Each palm had a faint meaning of good fortune in it. It seemed as if everything was contained in it, but it also seemed as if nothing was contained in it. This was the essence of the heaven and earth creation palm. In the blink of an eye, he had been in closed-door training for thousands of years. Yishuan had spent the vast majority of his time practicing the Fortune Universe palm during these 1,000 years. The more he practiced, the more he felt that he was lacking. It was different from any other martial arts he had practiced before. The martial arts he had practiced before often represented a kind of great way. However, the universe creation palm was completely different. It seemed to contain thousands of things, including everything in the world. No matter which direction he cultivated in, he would be able to reach an extremely profound realm. However, if he wanted to truly cultivate to the peak, he would have to ultimately attain the great Tao. The more Taos he cultivated, the stronger the power of the universe creation palm would be. It was as if it was tailor-made for Yi Shiwen. Although the 3,000 martial arts that Yi Shiwen practiced didn't contain everything, it was completely above countless emperors. This universe creation palm was incomparably profound and inexplicable. Even Yi Shiwen, who practiced 3,000 martial arts simultaneously, found it extremely difficult to practice it, let alone the other sovereign emperors who practiced only one martial art. There was almost no way for them to practice it. In other words, they couldn't practice the universe creation palm to its proper might. The more Yishuan practiced the universe creation palm, the more he felt that the Lord of creation heaven was indeed powerful. He couldn't see the end of it. Perhaps his realm hadn't reached the level where he could see through everything. However, what really excited him was that the universe creation palm made him more convinced that his path ahead might be right. Those who had truly achieved the great way wouldn't just extract one of the great ways to attack. Their martial arts contained all the great ways of the world. This might be the true meaning of achieving the great way. In this regard, he was undoubtedly ahead of everyone else. The road of 3,000 martial arts was very difficult. Although he had forcibly walked out of such a road that no one had ever walked before, but he still didn't have any confidence in his heart. After all, there was no future path to speak of after cultivating to this point. Every step was like reclaiming the sea to create land, and every step was like carving a way out of thin air. Until the end, no one would know if they were right or wrong. But now that he had studied the universe creation palm, he felt that perhaps this was indeed the right path, a path that could lead him to fortune. Although this path was destined to be incomparably difficult, it was fine as long as it wasn't a dead end. Moreover, Yi Shiwen could vaguely see the shadow of good fortune with the help of the universe creation palm. This was something that he couldn't see in his current realm, so it didn't have much significance for him at the moment. It could only be used as a reference. In the past thousands of years, Yi Shiwen had finally mastered the universe creation palm with the help of the mysterious space within his body. However, this alone consumed a total of 10 level 2 dragon veins. In terms of the resources consumed for cultivation, this was indeed the highest among all the martial arts that Yi Shiwen had cultivated. A level 2 dragon vein was enough for an emperor to establish a great sect. Consuming 20 level 2 dragon veins was equivalent to destroying 20 great sections. It was like a giant beast devouring all resources. This was also because Yi Shiwen had surpassed his own realm and comprehended it. If he had the strength to achieve the Great Way, he might be able to understand the universe creation poem in an instant. During the process of cultivation, Yi Shiwen's strength was also getting stronger. This was because there were many profound meanings in the universe creation poem that were very beneficial to his 3,000 martial arts. He was already infinitely close to the peak of the 8th realm, much closer than when he was in the creation martial pavilion. He only needed an epiphany to be able to truly climb to the peak of the 8th realm. At that time, his combat power would be greatly improved. And until now, he discovered that the biggest problem with this universe creation poem was that this universe creation poem consumed too much energy. This was because his own realm and skills were not enough to activate the universe creation poem, so he could only use energy to activate it. The degree of consumption was at least at the level of level 2 dragon vein. Therefore, this universe creation poem could not be used at all. It could only be used as a trump card. But even so, Yi Shiwen's strength had also greatly increased because of this universe creation poem. He even had the means to fight against the 9th realm. This was undoubtedly a joyous occasion for Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen didn't continue to wait since he had the means to protect himself. He wanted to return to the 4 prefectures. He should have smoothly suppressed the 4 prefectures in these 2,000 years if everything went smoothly. He should have completed his domination of the 4 prefectures. Now it was just the right time to go back and thoroughly deduce the cultivation to the peak of the 8th realm in preparation for the final step into the 9th realm. When he truly stepped into the 9th realm, existences like Emperor Tian, he could be easily killed. After coming out of the closed-door training space, Yi Shiwen did not choose to leave first. Instead, he went to the Battle Emperor's residence. Although he did not know what the Battle Emperor had gone to deal with, the Battle Emperor had finally returned after 2,000 years. When Yi Shiwen arrived, he was quickly led into the inner hall by the people of the Battle Emperor's residence to wait. After a while, the Battle Emperor had already arrived. "Martial Emperor, have you just come from the Sky Commerce Alliance?" The Battle Emperor smiled slightly, then sat on the main seat and asked, "Yes, I have just finished 1,000 years of closed-door training. I am about to go back. This is also to bid farewell to Senior Battle Emperor. When I first came last time, I did not get to see Senior Battle Emperor. I am quite regretful," said Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was not surprised in his heart, because he also knew that at this time, there were probably more than 1 or 2 people paying attention to his whereabouts. And the matter of him coming to the divine capital of fortune was more eye-catching than he initially expected. Perhaps there were also reasons and secrets that he did not know of in this. Closed-door training in the Sky Commerce Alliance? That's not too bad. As long as those people pay, there is nothing they cannot do, said the Battle Emperor with a faint smile. He did not seem to be surprised. For a veteran sovereign emperor like him, his eyes and ears were all over the divine capital of fortune. It was too easy to know Yi Shiwen's movements over the past 1,000 years. Previously, at the Martial Creation Pavilion, you must have obtained a lot of benefits, right? I see that your essence, spirit, and spirit have undergone a transformation again. You must have entered the 8th realm, said the Battle Emperor with a smile. Senior's eyes are like a torch. It is indeed so. Yi Shiwen did not intend to hide it. With the strength of the Battle Emperor, it was not easy for Yi Shiwen to hide it from him. In fact, it was impossible. Therefore, he simply did not hide it anymore. Not bad, not bad. I did not think highly of you in vain, said the Battle Emperor as his eyes lit up slightly. This is also thanks to you, Senior. If it wasn't for the conditions that you fought for me, without the help of the Martial Creation Pavilion, I'm afraid it would have taken me a long time to enter the 8th realm. Yi Shiwen bowed slightly to express his gratitude. However, He did not belittle himself. With his accumulation, even without the martial creation pavilion, it was only a matter of time before he entered the 8th realm. At most, it would not be so smooth. This also depends on your own efforts, said the Battle Emperor with a faint smile. I heard that Emperor Tion, he seems to be looking for trouble with you. Do you want me to greet him and ask him to restrain himself a little? Thank you for your concern, Senior Battle Emperor, but there is no need. I will deal with it when it comes. Even if he has 100 tricks, I have 100 ways to stop him, said Yi Shiwen with a smile. Good, what a high-spirited martial emperor. The Battle Emperor laughed heartily and applauded repeatedly. It was as if he admired Yi Shiwen's heroic spirit very much. Previously, when Yi Shiwen had said that he could pacify the 4 prefectures, the Battle Emperor still had some doubts. Initially, Yi Shiwen had only asked him to give it a try. Unexpectedly, not only had Yi Shiwen done it, but he had also pacified the 4 prefectures in such a straightforward manner that nobody could stop him. When he heard this news, he was also a little surprised. He did not expect that the casual opportunity he had given back then would lead to such a situation. This was indeed a talent of a generation. Not everyone could seize such an opportunity. This made him value Yi Shiwen even more and increased his intention to win him over to his side. I also heard that the Blue Sky Association looked for you, said the Battle Emperor slightly. Indeed, but I don't know the background of the Blue Sky Association. They don't seem to be simple, said Yi Shiwen. So, I did not choose to agree. Well, this is good to be cautious. There are many things in the Fortune Divine Capital, and they are also very complicated. Now, they're already very complicated. Even I have no way to clear them up one by one. Since you have chosen to develop in this place, then don't get involved in the affairs of the Fortune Divine Capital anymore. It's best to stay far away from it. It's also best that you don't get involved in the affairs of the Blue Sky Association. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. The Battle Emperor nodded. This Yi Shiwen was more shrewd than he had imagined. Although he was decisive in his actions, he did not lack caution. He was a person who would achieve great things. If Yi Shiwen was a carefree person, the Battle Emperor would not look up to him no matter how talented he was. This was because such people would often die the earliest. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes slightly. From the attitude of Emperor Li and the Battle Emperor, this Blue Sky Association was indeed not simple. He did not know how many big shots were behind them. However, there should be many enemies too, just like the Battle Emperor. Even if he was not an enemy of the Blue Sky Association, he was not a friend either. If Yi Shiwen joined them rashly, there would definitely be serious consequences. Oh yes, I have one more thing to tell you. Chapter 32:13. By the way, I have one more thing to tell you. Battle Emperor spoke again at this moment. What's the matter? Yi Shiwen paused and then asked. You'd better not run around during this period of time. Stay in the human province. Perhaps something big is about to happen. If you're not around at that time, you might miss something very important, said Battle Emperor. Understood. Yi Shiwen nodded. Although he didn't know what Battle Emperor was talking about, since he had already said so, it should be right. With his current strength, perhaps there was really nothing that was very important to him. So what was it? Many thoughts flashed through Yi Shiwen's mind. He had guessed many things, but he always felt that he was still lacking something. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first, said Yi Shiwen. Well, go ahead. After leaving the Battle Emperor's mansion, Yi Shiwen felt Emperor Tian Yi's divine sense surveillance again. In the Battle Emperor's mansion, he didn't dare to be presumptuous. Although they were both in the 9th realm, the status between them was fundamentally different. However, after leaving the Battle Emperor's mansion, everything was completely different. Yi Shiwen sneered slightly and acted as if he didn't see it. Then, he flew out of the divine capital of fortune and directly flew in the direction of the human province. He flew all the way. In a short period of time, he had already flown tens of millions of miles. However, he soon stopped and just stood with his hands behind his back. He flew in the sky and said, "Come out. You've followed me for such a long time. Do you still want to continue hiding?" Humph, Yi Shiwen, from the moment you rejected my good intentions 2,000 years ago, you should have known that such a day would come sooner or later. Then, a figure slowly appeared, but it was none other than Emperor Tian Yi. His surroundings shook, and the universe resonated with him. He had an extremely terrifying might. This was the might of a true emperor of the Ninth Realm. It was far from what his body of Wei could compare to. Emperor Tian Yi's Tao body was no match for Yi Shiwen at all. It was killed in a moment. However, this also made Emperor Tian Yi truly understand Yi Shiwen's strength. The Tao body alone might not be able to do anything to Yi Shiwen, so he simply showed his real body. In order to deal with me, a dignified Ninth Realm Emperor actually took action personally. It's really my honor. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly, but he said without panic, "With your strength, it's not a big deal for me to take action personally." Emperor Skywing said. Although he had stepped into the Ninth Realm, none of his subordinates could do anything to Yi Shiwen. There were very few sovereign emperors above the Seventh Realm to begin with, and there were no sovereign emperors in the Seventh Realm who could do anything to him. Only sovereign emperors at the Eighth Realm had a chance, and none of his subordinates were that powerful. Thus, he had no choice but to personally fight. This place is not far from the Divine Fortune Capital. You dare to intercept me here? Aren't you afraid of death? Yi Shiwen said lightly. Although the Fortune Divine Dynasty's control over the 5 regions was far from what it used to be, it was impossible for them to turn a blind eye to such an obvious challenge to the Fortune Divine Dynasty's authority. Do you think I will come to kill you without any preparation? Emperor Skywing sneered. He suddenly stomped his foot, and then, with his feet as the center, the space began to change. Like a layer of flowing water, it expanded in all directions. In an instant, the space within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers turned gray, isolating the world from the outside world. Space magic. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. He clearly felt that this side of the world had been completely isolated. In other words, no matter how many battles were happening inside, it was impossible for the outside world to know. He waved his hands suddenly, and a shocking sword aura was formed. With a terrifying vibration, it slashed towards the depths of the gray void. Boom! A huge explosion came from the sky, but the entire gray space only shook slightly. Then, it disappeared without a trace. It was swallowed by this space. This is not a magic, but a martial instrument. Yi Shiwen hadn't been able to break through this tentative attack. However, he had still managed to probe the essence of this dusky space. That's right. This is indeed not a magic, but a mixed origin space. Empyrean Lord Heavenly Wing laughed loudly and said in an extremely pleased manner, "This space is where I usually cultivate in seclusion. It isolates all auras. In the chaos turbulence, even an Empyrean would not be able to calculate anything. Do you think I've done nothing in the past 2,000 years? If you die here, no one will know at all. Everyone will only think that you have disappeared. After a few years, who will remember you?" Emperor Tian Yi said indifferently. Yi Shiwen frowned slightly and then relaxed. "In order to kill me, you have put in a lot of effort, but it won't be so easy to kill me. Don't think that you're so great just because you've entered the 7th realm. In front of me, you're still unable to withstand a single blow. It's because of your arrogance that you refused my good intentions. Today, you'll pay the price." As Emperor Tian Yi said, his eyes flashed with a gloomy divine light. His body released a terrifying aura, like a powerful storm, instantly engulfing the entire space. Time, space, and all the laws were distorted under his terrifying aura, turning into nothingness. At the same time, the time robe on Yi Shiwen's body also appeared. It was flowing with flowing lights, like a burning flame. That was the spiritual power on his body burning. Facing such a powerful master like Emperor Tian Yi, he did not dare to be careless at all. Boom! Emperor Tian Yi finally moved. The mixed origin space was boiling, and there was a terrifying power distorting. It directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen with a terrifying power. Whoosh! The wings behind Emperor Tian Yi flapped, and he directly flashed in front of Yi Shiwen. His speed was too fast, so fast that even with Yi Shiwen's double pupils, he could only catch some afterimages. Unknowingly, a long weapon had appeared in his hand. It was a gold-plated phoenix wing, like a long spear, and a pair of crescent-shaped wings grew on the spearhead. Every time it flapped, it brought about a terrifying wind between heaven and earth. This gold-plated phoenix wing in Emperor Tian Yi's hand exerted a terrifying pressure as heavy as Mount Tai, and it directly slashed towards Yishuan. Behind Yishuan, the demon's wings directly flew in front of him and protected him in it. Boom! The demon's wings were broken in an instant, unable to block this gold-plated phoenix wing. However, it was this instant that finally bought enough time for Yishuan. In his hand, the Avicii sword appeared, and then he attacked. Boom! The shocking collision between the two Dao artifacts caused a terrifying aura to surge outwards, causing the entire primordial dimension to shake violently. Wave after wave of laws were formed, capable of destroying all. No one could stop them. Dawn! There was a deafening roar, almost as if two worlds had collided together. A terrifying force swept out from both sides. Thump, thump, thump. Both sides began to retreat. Emperor Tian, he only took a step back, but Yishuan took a few steps back before he finally dissipated the terrifying power brought by this collision. Emperor Tian, he was slightly puzzled because he realized that he actually did not split Yishuan in half, and Yishuan did not even appear to be seriously injured. He only took a few steps back, and the power of his attack was completely dissipated. The strength of this physical body was indeed extremely powerful. Such powerful strength. Is this the ninth realm? Yishuan was slightly surprised. Emperor Tian Yi's strength in this aspect was almost not inferior to his. The ninth realm almost represented perfection, without any obvious flaws. Even if it was not his strength, it could still be comparable to Yishuan's strongest physical body. It was indeed extremely tyrannical. It was just a moment of luck. Even an ant wants to peep into the world of the giant dragon. Emperor Tian, he lost for a moment, but he did not take it to heart. Previously, it was just his estimation that was not accurate. Swish! The gold-plated phoenix wing pendant in Emperor Tian Yi's hand swept out. Even a place like the Chaos Origin Space was cut into two halves. It was just a simple blow, but it locked everything in the world. It blocked all the escape space of Yishuan, not giving him a chance to escape at all. In his hands, martial arts had really reached the pinnacle, reaching a kind of terrifying realm that no one before or after could surpass. A casual attack could destroy the world. Yishuan was fearless. He just shouted and faced the attack with the Avicii sword in his hand. Dang! Another intense collision took place. Sparks flew in all directions. Every single spark turned into a terrifying great flame that burned fiercely, burning the natural laws into ashes. This time, I want you to die. Emperor Tian, he held the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant with one hand. He could suppress Yishuan with just one hand. Such power was also terrifying. However, just when he thought that Yishuan would not be able to hold on, he saw that Yishuan's body released a vast cosmic aura. Yishuan had always been at the peak of the seventh realm, but he suddenly rushed to the eighth realm. Yishuan's power suddenly increased a lot, and instantly shook off Emperor Tian Yi's gold-plated phoenix wing pendant. The Avicii sword in his hand slashed towards Emperor Tian Yi at lightning speed. Pucci! Emperor Tian Yi's reaction was also extremely fast, but his chest was still slashed by the sword. A wound appeared and blood splashed out. Chapter 32:14. Sovereign Lord Skywing's blood splashed out. Every drop that fell into the chaos space caused the entire space to tremble. Every drop of a Sovereign Lord's blood contained an energy that could destroy the heavens and earth. It was terrifying to the extreme. Now that it fell down without any restrictions, one could imagine just how astonishing it was. Is this a breakthrough in the midst of battle? No, this is not a breakthrough in the midst of battle. He is clearly broken through long ago. His body was still splashing blood, but Emperor Tian, he didn't care at all. In other words, he didn't need to care at all. There was no need at all, because this wound looked scary, but in fact, it didn't hurt his internal organs. Soon, it recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. He was more concerned about Yi Shiwen's sudden burst of strength. At first, he thought that Yi Shiwen had a breakthrough in the midst of battle. Although such a thing was extremely rare for an emperor, he had seen it many times. He had done many such things in his life. It was just that he hadn't stepped into the emperor realm at that time. So, it was normal to have a breakthrough in the midst of battle. It was just that it was almost impossible for an emperor realm to have a breakthrough in the midst of battle. The difference in strength between each level of sovereign emperor was huge. This was because there were simply too many conditions needed to break through each level. Not only did one have to improve their cultivation, but they also had to improve their comprehension of the great Tao, their horizons, and so on. Because of this, the probability of a breakthrough in the midst of battle was too low. He never thought that there would be such a day. But soon, he could distinguish that this was not a breakthrough in the midst of battle. On the contrary, this was clearly a breakthrough long ago. It was just that Yi Shiwen didn't show it at all. Such a good plan. He still hid it for so long after breaking through. Emperor Tian, Yi's expression became colder. He didn't have the strength of a battle emperor, so he didn't see that Yi Shiwen had a breakthrough in the first place. However, he was a ninth realm emperor after all. He also had his own pride. Fortunately, I chose to do it myself this time. Otherwise, the other emperors might not be able to do anything to you. They might even be killed by you. Emperor Tian, Yi's expression became colder and colder as he said, "Mf." Yi Shiwen snorted coldly and didn't say anything. The Avicii sword in his hand was still dripping with blood. Although this sword didn't severely injure Emperor Tian Yi, it at least proved that Emperor Tian Yi wasn't truly invincible. It was just that Yi Shiwen didn't have that ability previously. He wasn't like the Battled Arch. With the strength of the Battled Arch, Jiang, he was afraid that even if he used the Universe Creation Palm, he wouldn't be a match for the Battled Arch. This was the fundamental difference in strength. The battle god had been able to survive since the time when the Fortune Creation Heavenly Monarch was still around, so how could he not be outstanding? But even so, don't even think about escaping today. Since I'm here, you won't have the chance to escape. Emperor Tian, he secretly rejoiced in his heart that he was cautious. Fortunately, he took action personally. Otherwise, his subordinates might not be Yi Shiwen's opponent. They would be killed by Yi Shiwen like chopping melons and vegetables. Really? I don't think so. Yi Shiwen just faintly smiled. You're still so stubborn even when you're about to die. Emperor Tian, he took a step forward and attacked again with the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant in his hand. The wound on his chest had almost recovered. He was willing to talk to Yi Shiwen just now because he had the intention of delaying time. He wanted to kill Yi Shiwen in his peak condition without leaving any flaws for Emperor Tian Yi to take advantage of. Boom! On the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant, there was a blazing fire as if it was a real flame. It directly burned everything in the world. Come! Yi Shiwen shouted and rushed forward with the Avicii sword in his hand. He hadn't used the Universe Creation Palm yet because he wasn't forced to that extent. He also wanted to use Emperor Tian Yi as his catalyst so that he could improve further and improve himself when he was forced to a dead end. Previously, he used Spirit Emperor as his whetstone and stepping stone, which allowed his cultivation to rush from the 7th realm to the peak of the 7th realm so quickly. And now, he was going to use the same trick again. However, he was still very confident. Although he wasn't afraid of danger, he rarely took risks. He would only take action when he had a certain degree of confidence. People who only took risks in their life were mostly dead. Boom, boom, boom. Both sides crossed each other in an instant. It was unknown how many moves they had exchanged. Was it 1,000 moves or 10,000 moves? Both of them couldn't calculate it all. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Shiwen retreated continuously, and his figure fell out from the afterimage. He truly felt the horrifying power of Emperor Tian Yi. Even under the protection of the time robe and the gilded tyrant form that he had painstakingly cultivated, he still felt agitated in this crazy exchange. It was as if a mouthful of blood would spurt out at any time. Cracks could be seen everywhere on his body. In the exchange with Emperor Tian Yi, he was slightly at a disadvantage. Although it wasn't serious, it was still extremely rare for him to be in such a situation after he became an emperor. And on the other side, Emperor Tian Yi, who was holding the phoenix wing gold-plated bell, also appeared. His aura was even, and he was far from being as miserable as Yi Shiwen. But in fact, he was completely shocked. Yi Shiwen was only in the 8th realm, but he could actually fight with him until now without being at a disadvantage. If such a person was allowed to grow, it would be terrible. An even more intense killing intent flashed in his eyes. Although he was confident, he wasn't that arrogant. Naturally, he was very clear that with Yi Shiwen's progress, if Yi Shiwen really entered the 9th realm, then it would be a terrifying thing. In these 2,000 years, he naturally didn't do nothing. He had also collected a lot of information about Yi Shiwen, so he naturally knew about Yi Shiwen's amazing achievements. Not only did Huang Xiaolong kill those famous god emperors after entering the Fortune Divine Dynasty, but more importantly, Huang Xiaolong's growth speed was astonishing. In just a short period of time, Huang Xiaolong's cultivation had shot up like a rocket. If Huang Xiaolong allowed Huang Xiaolong to do as he pleased, it wouldn't be long before Huang Xiaolong caught up to Huang Xiaolong. And once that day really came, it would be a disaster for him. And what Emperor Tian Yi didn't know was that at this moment, Yi Shiwen already had the intention to kill him, but he just didn't have the ability to do so. But even so, he was only used by Yi Shiwen as a whetstone to improve himself. If Emperor Tian Yi knew about it, he would probably faint from anger. You also don't have to struggle, because no matter what, you can't escape. Emperor Tian Yi launched a verbal attack, but at the same time, the phoenix wing gold-plated dang seemed to break through the space. It was clearly in front of him previously, but in the next instant, it had already slashed in front of Yi Shiwen. And his previous words were simply to distract Yi Shiwen's attention, so that his phoenix wing gold-plated dang could succeed. Dang! This attack was as fast as lightning, and even used the law of space. In this mixed yuan space, it was the home field of Emperor Tian Yi, so it was naturally much easier to use the law of space. And in contrast, it was extremely difficult for Yi Shiwen to use the law of space to travel through space. However, this attack ultimately didn't really hide from Yi Shiwen, or rather, Emperor Tian Yi's words didn't distract him at all. Emperor Tian Yi's means might be effective against others, but for him, who had the Mingxin ancient tree to protect him, it couldn't be of any use at all. Yi Shiwen raised his sword and directly blocked the attack of the phoenix wing golden dang. However, the terrifying power of the attack forced him to retreat continuously. Every step he took back would leave a huge hole in the space and shatter everything. Such a formidable power was extremely terrifying. And at this moment, Emperor Tian Yi, who was still controlling the phoenix wing gold-plated dang from afar, had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. Or it should be said that it was more appropriate to say that he directly tore the space. This time, I'll take your life. All of this was within Emperor Tian Yi's control. He had long calculated this, so he immediately approached Yi Shiwen and slapped down with his palm. Boom! In an instant, the sun, moon, and stars were destroyed, and the law of the universe was completely destroyed at this moment. This palm hit Yi Shiwen squarely, and the holy kingdom of time around Yi Shiwen collapsed. When the palm hit Yi Shiwen's body, the cracks on his body began to spread densely like a spider web, and blood finally began to flow out uncontrollably. However, before he could show a triumphant smile, he saw a terrifying aura suddenly erupt from Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen's figure became more and more imposing, and a terrifying power surged out from his body. The powerful power caused all the laws to emerge. It was visible to the naked eye. In the void, it was like a waterfall dancing in the sky. Each of them was so enchanting, and each of them was so mysterious. Eat my palm before you speak, Yi Shiwen shouted and slapped out with his palm. In an instant, all the essence in the world seemed to be seized by him, and all of it was concentrated in his palm. Emperor Skywing could only watch as the palm came crashing towards him. Because the distance was too close, he couldn't dodge at all. Even with his speed, he still wouldn't be able to dodge the palm. At this moment, he saw the smile on Yi Shiwen's face, and he understood everything. He thought that everything was under his control, but he didn't realize that everything was actually within Yi Shiwen's calculations. Just now, Yi Shiwen had deliberately taken his attack head-on for the sake of this palm. Boom! With a loud sound, Yi Shiwen's palm hit Emperor Tian Yi's chest. Chapter 32:15. Boom! But there was only a loud roar. Yi Shiwen's palm hit Emperor Tian Yi's chest. Suddenly, it was as if the world was destroyed. The power of this palm was too shocking. All the power in the world was contained in this palm. There was no more horrifying attack than this. Puff! Emperor Tian Yi, who had the upper hand all along, finally spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body flew out, and there was a destructive power running amok in his body. His body seemed to be distorted, and the entire scene was distorted. It looked extremely horrifying. His body was torn apart by various powers, and was almost going to explode on the spot. Fortunately, Emperor Tian Yi's power was strong enough. Otherwise, if it was someone else, they would have died without a burial place. Cough, cough, how was this palm? Yi Shiwen coughed out a little blood. In order to buy time for the universe creation palm, he forcefully took the full blow of Emperor Tian Yi. The power of the full blow of a ninth realm expert was imaginable. Yi Shiwen's body almost collapsed. If not for the time robe, Tyrant Golden Form alone would not have been able to withstand it, because he did not defend or parry and only took it head-on. In his body, a fire phoenix was constantly crying in his blood vessels. A huge amount of life force was constantly flowing into his body, causing his broken body to constantly recover. Emperor Tian Yi's eyes were fixed on Yi Shiwen. He was actually injured. Before this, he did not expect Yi Shiwen to be able to seriously injure him, even in the worst situation he had imagined. Just like the previous sword, injuring him a little when he was unprepared was already the limit. But now, Yi Shiwen used his actions to tell everyone that this was far from the limit. You actually dared to injure me. You will definitely die. You will definitely die. Emperor Skywing continued to bellow. His savage face made him look like a wounded wild beast. However, his body was still being constantly torn apart by that strange power, and he wasn't able to cleanse it in a short period of time. He had never seen such a strange and vast power before. This kind of majestic feeling even surpassed any martial arts he had ever known. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so difficult for him. He had to expend a considerable amount of power to suppress this strange energy and prevent it from being torn apart. Hee, how much strength do you have now? Yi Shiwen smiled mischievously. All of this was within his calculations. If he used the universe creation palm under normal circumstances, even if he could injure Emperor Tian, most of it would be blocked by Emperor Tian Yi. Emperor Tian Yi wouldn't be in such a difficult position. But now, it was like he had forcefully taken a blow from Imperial Lord Tian Yi. In exchange, Imperial Lord Tian Yi had also forcefully taken a blow from him. This power contained the essence of Fortune Heaven, Lord's martial arts. Even with Imperial Lord Tian Yi's power, it was very difficult for him to expel it. This palm didn't look like much, but it consumed a level 2 dragon vein. All of it was converted into a huge amount of power, and when it pushed out, the entire world collapsed. It's enough to kill you. Emperor Tian Yi coughed out 2 mouthfuls of blood and said, "Stubborn." Yi Shiwen sneered. He finally moved. While Emperor Tian Yi was being held back by the universe creation palm in his body, Yi Shiwen directly attacked with a long sword in his hand. Fast! 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 A terrifying force exploded between the heavens and the earth. Yi Shiwen's speed was extremely fast, and his strength was also extremely terrifying. It seemed as if no one in this world could stop him. He launched a counterattack in an instant. Boom! Emperor Tian Yi hastily faced the enemy. Most of his power was used to suppress his injuries, so he couldn't resist Yi Shiwen's sword at all. The gold-plated phoenix wing bell in his hand barely resisted, but he was blasted by Yi Shiwen's powerful power. He flew back thousands of meters on the spot, and another mouthful of blood spurted out. Emperor Tian Yi's speed was very fast, but Yi Shiwen wasn't slow either. He was just slightly inferior to Emperor Tian Yi when he was at his peak. With his current realm, it was already extremely terrifying that he was slightly inferior to Emperor Tian Yi. Emperor Tian Yi was sent flying, and he was almost killed by Yi Shiwen's sword on the spot. The skinny man in green looked like a peerless god of death. All his attacks were completely integrated into one, and it was done in one go. At this moment, Yi Shiwen truly displayed the power of the Eighth Realm. He wasn't as pathetic as he looked just now. Emperor Tian Yi was sent flying. He roared, and just when he was about to roar, he saw that Yi Shiwen had already raised his sword with both hands again. Another splitting mountain style came down, and it slashed towards Emperor Tian Yi's head on the spot. Boom! The heaven and earth shook violently. At the crucial moment, Emperor Tian Yi finally raised the gold-plated phoenix wing pendant to block it. He wasn't split into two on the spot, but he was sent flying like a meteor again. This was what he was trying his best to avoid. The strange and magnificent power in his body was still not cleansed. If he was slashed by Yi Shiwen again, then the consequences would be unimaginable. His body would probably collapse, and he wouldn't be able to reassemble again. If Yi Shiwen seized this opportunity, he might really die on the spot. However, Yi Shiwen's offensive continued. A great monument-breaking hand almost pierced through Emperor Tian Yi. The pair of heaven wings behind Emperor Tian Yi couldn't stop Yi Shiwen at all. It collapsed several times, and he was unable to organize a stronger power to counterattack. Boom! 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 After Yi Shiwen gained the upper hand, Yi Shiwen was completely unforgiving. He didn't give Emperor Tian Yi any chance to breathe at all. Yi Shiwen attacked again and again, almost as if he wanted to force Emperor Tian Yi into a dead end. Martial Emperor, if you force me like this, sooner or later, I will annihilate the human race. Emperor Tian Yi retreated continuously. Blood kept flowing out, and his whole body was covered in blood. He just stared at Yi Shiwen fiercely and threatened. You want to annihilate the human race? With just you? Yi Shiwen sneered and didn't take him seriously at all. Although Emperor Tian Yi was very strong, he hadn't reached that level, so he wasn't worried. But for the sake of caution, I'll kill you first. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and his attack became even fiercer. Another great steel-breaking hand blasted on Emperor Tian Yi's body. It almost shattered his body. Puff! Emperor Tian Yi finally couldn't hold on anymore. The entire Chaos Origin space was constantly shaking, and then, with a loud bang, it disappeared. This space was attached to Imperial Lord Skywing. Although it was a magic treasure, it was mainly up to Imperial Lord Skywing to control it. However, as Imperial Lord Skywing had been heavily wounded time and time again, he was no longer able to control the primordial space at all. All he could do was watch as it collapsed. As the Chaos Origin space collapsed, the battle between the two directly appeared in front of everyone. The terrifying turbulence finally wasn't restrained by the Chaos Origin space, and it spread in all directions. One by one, the arrays were activated on the spot. Many ancient arrays might not have been activated for millions or tens of millions of years, because no one dared to be presumptuous in a place like the divine capital of creation, even if it was a place not far from the divine capital of creation. Even Emperor Tian, he had to find a way to force Yi Shiwen into the Chaos Origin space to deal with him directly. Therefore, the people nearby had been peaceful for a long time, and they didn't expect that a battle of this level would break out here. What's going on? Everyone stared at the scene in front of them with their mouths agape. Just a fight between the two emperors was enough to shock them. They were simply dumbfounded, not to mention that Yi Shiwen was valiant, invincible, and unstoppable. He was practically suppressing Emperor Tian Yi. Emperor Tian Yi, who was like a deity in the eyes of everyone, was actually beaten to the point that his body was full of injuries. It seemed as if he was almost killed. As compared to just now, it had been a while. Although Yi Shiwen's injuries were also very serious, most of them had recovered under the treatment of the Phoenix regeneration technique. His appearance had also begun to return to normal. At least, he was much better than Emperor Tian Yi, who was being suppressed. In the eyes of many people, this was simply a miracle. They had never heard that Emperor Tian Yi, who was in the ninth realm, would actually be suppressed in a one-on-one battle and beaten like this. Who is this? How can he be so powerful? Even Emperor Tian Yi is not his opponent. This is the human clan's new Emperor Wu. Some people also recognized Yi Shiwen's identity. Although he had just risen not long ago, thousands of years were enough for many people to recognize his existence. How can Emperor Tian Yi be defeated? Is a martial emperor really so powerful? This battle alarmed many nearby powerhouses. The central region itself was full of powerhouses, not to mention that this place was close to the Fortune Divine capital. There were even more powerhouses. Everyone was shocked by this battle. It was completely beyond their imagination. A super big shot in the ninth realm was actually beaten up so badly by a new powerhouse. Although he was exposed in front of everyone after breaking free from the main plane, it also bought him a chance. If Yi Shiwen stopped attacking because of the crowd, he could also win enough time to breathe. A feeling of sorrow rose in his heart. Who was he? He was also one of the top figures in the Fortune Divine dynasty. But he actually wanted Yi Shiwen to be afraid of others so that he could have a chance to breathe. Shouldn't it be Yi Shiwen? Emperor Tian Yi instantly looked at Yi Shiwen. Chapter 32:16. When a superpower house placed the hope of survival on others, it was a very sad thing in itself, especially when Yi Shiwen's strength was inferior to him. But at this time, he had no other way at all because he was ambushed by Yi Shiwen and suffered this blow. There was no way for him to recover in this period of time, so he could only think so in humiliation. If he was in Yi Shiwen's shoes, he would still care about the thoughts of others. He hadn't reached the point where he could kill whoever he wanted. Otherwise, he wouldn't have trapped Yi Shiwen in the mixed origin space first. He was just bullying Yi Shiwen's lower realm. If it was in existence at the level of Battle Emperor, this space could be destroyed in one move. However, such hesitation was only for a moment because he saw Yi Shiwen attacked again without any scruples. Yi Shiwen held the sword with both hands and pounced over again. Swish! A ray of sword light shone brilliantly. It was the light of laws burning, and it made everyone want to close their eyes. They were unable to look at the situation at all. It was as if millions of stars had exploded at the same time, and the world was about to be torn apart. How dare you? Emperor Tian Yi was shocked and angry. He did not think that Yi Shiwen would really dare to attack here, but he had no other way at this time. Yi Shiwen's sword radiance had already slashed down fiercely. He didn't have enough time to dodge. He also didn't have enough time to block the attack with his phoenix wing gold-plated pendant. In other words, he believed that Yi Shiwen would have some misgivings. Even he would have misgivings, let alone Yi Shiwen. However, the facts proved that he was still wrong about Yi Shiwen. From the very beginning, he had underestimated Yi Shiwen, underestimated his strength, and now he underestimated his determination. Since he had already offended him to this point, Yi Shiwen would not show any mercy at all. Yi Shiwen's thoughts were exactly the same as his initial thoughts. Since he had already offended the Emperor Tian Yi, he should eliminate the root of the problem as soon as possible. It would be best if he could kill the Emperor Tian Yi. Even if the Emperor Tian Yi was powerful and had deep roots in the Fortune God dynasty, Yi Shiwen didn't believe that the Emperor Tian Yi would chase after him for a dead person. At most, he would just have to pay some price. And this price was still worthwhile compared to the threat of a ninth realm expert. Puff! The sword beam tore through Empyrean Emperor Skywing's wings and cleaved straight at his chest. A huge wound immediately appeared on his chest, and blood sprayed into the blue sky. In the distance, many experts felt their hearts palpitating with fear. Yi Shiwen had no inhibitions and was ruthless in his attacks. He did not regard the person in front of him as someone who could influence the Fortune Divine dynasty situation. To him, Yi Shiwen was like a weed on the side of the road, easily killed. Emperor Tian Yi was severely injured, and his internal injuries were constantly worsening. He even began to be unable to suppress it. This was what he was really afraid of. If it wasn't for the fact that his internal injuries couldn't be healed, he wouldn't be afraid of Yi Shiwen at all. In terms of recovery ability, his recovery ability wasn't bad. Sword Qi crushed through the sky. Every sword was over 1,000 kilometers long, and they almost blotted out the sky as they slashed through it. They never stopped, and more sword Qi was slashed out. They were so dense that they completely blocked off all of Imperial Lord Heavenly Wing's escape routes. No matter where he hid, there was no use at all. He could only take Yi Shiwen's attacks head-on. Although a 9th Realm expert had an overwhelming advantage over an 8th Realm expert, it didn't mean that he could completely crush the opponent if he wasn't in his peak state. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen's injuries had already healed. During this period of time, it was him who launched the attacks. Emperor Tian Yi only had the power to defend and had no chance to fight back. Gradually, the gap between the two sides became bigger and bigger. Bang, bang, bang. Emperor Tian Yi displayed the strong vitality of a 9th Realm expert. Even at this stage, he didn't self-destruct on the spot and was killed by Yi Shiwen. Within a radius of millions of miles, countless creatures crawled on the ground and shivered. There were countless experts here, and even the ordinary creatures were slightly more powerful than those in other places. But for them, the battle between Emperor Lords at this level was like a battle between gods in heaven. They were afraid that mortals like them would be implicated. They didn't even have the mood to watch the show. The energy that was released from both sides was enough to destroy the world. The aftermath swept across, and even the sea was instantly evaporated. It was extremely terrifying. It can't be that Emperor Skywing is really going to die, right? Many experts couldn't help but be frightened when they were watching the show. Yi Shiwen was more daring to kill than they imagined. Originally, they didn't think that Emperor Tian Yi might die, but now this thought suddenly rose up. Damn it, Emperor Tian Yi roared. He never thought that he would encounter such a situation one day. Since his debut, he had never suffered such a huge loss. The battlefield of both sides seemed to be moving towards the direction of the divine capital of fortune at lightning speed. Emperor Tian Yi desperately fled towards the direction of the divine capital of fortune. He knew that only by entering the divine capital of fortune could he possibly escape. In the divine capital of fortune, no one dared to kill so wantonly. And Yi Shiwen also saw through his intention. How could he let him succeed? He immediately launched a heavy attack. Emperor Tian Yi was clearly on the verge of dying. How could he be willing to let him escape like this? If such an expert escaped, the consequences would be unimaginable. Dominator of the world, Yi Shiwen roared. It was as if he had transformed into a sovereign emperor. He let out a huge roar on the spot, and the terrifying sword light flickered in his hand. It turned into a mountain and sprinkled down as if it was carrying the Milky Way. Boom! Emperor Tian Yi flew out, and his body was almost cleaved into two halves. Everyone could even see his spine. Yi Shiwen's sword was really too heavy. If this goes on, I'm afraid Emperor Tian Yi won't be able to hold on until the divine capital of fortune. An almighty expert instantly divined that if this continued, Empyrean Lord Skywing would definitely die outside the creation divine capital. There's no other way. This time he failed miserably. Come to think of it, Yi Shiwen hasn't entered the 9th realm yet. Otherwise, Emperor Tian Yi wouldn't be able to hold on until now. It's just that I don't know what kind of technique Yi Shiwen used to be able to injure Emperor Tian Yi so severely. Many emperors watched the battle indifferently and had no intention of making a move. Yi Shiwen was currently crazy like a demon. Whoever stood in front of him would probably die. Unless there was a 9th realm expert, only then could they stop Yi Shiwen. Stop! Suddenly, a loud shout came from the divine capital of fortune. Then a figure with a huge aura whizzed over. A long spear carried thousands of starlights, tearing everything apart, and directly headed towards Yi Shiwen. This spear drowned the void and actually evolved space. It was also an extremely terrifying, profound meaning of the spear technique. "Get lost," Yi Shiwen shouted. His eyes were flashing with a shocking, killing intent. This was the best opportunity to kill Emperor Tian-Yi. How could he let anyone stop him? This long spear didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. The spear crossed the void and was about to break Yi Shiwen's sword momentum. Seeing that there was no way to avoid this spear, Yi Shiwen's chest immediately burst with anger. He was furious. "Since you want to die, then I'll let you die." After Yi Shiwen roared, he took a step forward and clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. He punched out fiercely, like a galaxy exploding, and directly blasted on the endless spear radiance. Boom! A terrifying shock wave swept out. Fierce, it was really too fierce. This was the most straightforward collision. There were no fancy tricks involved. It was just a contest of strength between the two sides. However, such a contest only lasted for a moment, because Yi Shiwen had already broken the spear light. At this time, the towering long spear had already appeared in everyone's vision. All the spear radiance was crushed. Then, Yi Shiwen did something even more shocking. They saw him open his hand and then grab this long spear. Before everyone could react, Yi Shiwen suddenly exerted force, and a figure was pulled out of the void where he was hiding. He staggered and fell out. They saw that it was actually a powerful emperor of the 7th realm. Before everyone could see clearly who it was, they only felt his tyrannical aura. Yi Shiwen brazenly made a move. 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Behind Yi Shiwen, 6 paths of reincarnation formed on the spot and turned into 6 terrifying forces. 6 completely different but complementary fist forces gushed out, twisting into a terrifying long river, and suddenly blasted out. Boom! With a loud roar, this punch directly pierced through the figure. His physical body finally could not hold on and collapsed in the void on the spot, turning into blood clots all over the sky. In the distance, many people only felt frightened. What kind of terrifying existence was above the 7th realm? They were the giants among the emperors, invincible figures. Although the 7th realm was not as strong as the 8th realm that Yi Shiwen had revealed, it could not be said to be vulnerable. And now, in front of Yi Shiwen, this person was simply vulnerable. One punch pierced through, and his physical body collapsed like a piece of paper. At this time, everyone finally understood why Yi Shiwen was obviously only in the 8th realm, but could chase after the 9th realm Emperor Tian-Yi. No matter what was discovered, Yi Shiwen's strength was an unavoidable problem. In terms of combat power, it was comparable to the peak of the 8th realm. Roar! The emperor who was collapsed by one punch roared, and his physical body was about to reassemble. However, Yi Shiwen's anger could not be quelled, and he directly slammed his palm down. Universe Creation Palm. Boom! Chapter 32:17. Yi Shiwen's creation heaven and earth palm fell down. The emperor was very weak because his physical body had collapsed. So he collapsed on the spot, and his spirit was thoroughly reduced to ashes. Yi Shiwen's creation heaven and earth palm fell down. In a fit of rage, Yi Shiwen directly burned a level 2 dragon vein and turned it into a terrifying power that fell into this palm. Previously, Emperor Tian-Yi took such a palm and was suppressed by Yi Shiwen until now. Even the Emperor Tian-Yi of the 9th realm was in such a state, let alone the Emperor Tian-Yi of the 7th realm. Under normal circumstances, although the universe creation palm consumed a lot of energy, it was not to the extent of consuming a level 2 dragon vein. If that was the case, Yi Shiwen would not be able to afford such consumption even though he was Tycoon. The palm seemed to be very powerful, but in reality, it wasn't that effective. This was because it wasn't like Empyrean Lord Skywing could be hit by it every time without putting up any defenses. This was originally prepared for the top experts of the 9th realm. Now that it was used to deal with the Emperor Tian-Yi of the 7th realm, it was undoubtedly overkill. However, the effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey was also very good. No matter what kind of thoughts they had, many experts who looked over were frightened by Yi Shiwen. Among these gazes, some experts were indeed very strong. There were experts of the 7th realm, the 8th realm, and even the 9th realm. The Emperor Tianni of the 7th realm was not an unreachable existence for them. Even for the 9th realm, if they were willing to pay a certain price, it was not impossible to kill the existence of the 7th realm. However, they had never heard of killing the existence of the 7th realm in 2 moves. 1 punch and 1 palm. That was all. It seemed to be an ordinary attack, but it completely destroyed the existence of the 7th realm in nothingness. This Emperor Tianni was killed by Yi Shiwen before he could do anything. What if it was them? What did they do? He would probably be killed in an instant. Thinking of this, many people could not help but be terrified. Many who originally had some ideas were now scared back. No one wanted to follow in the footsteps of this Emperor Tianni. He died too quickly. The 7th realm was not his opponent at all. According to this situation, the 8th realm would definitely not be a match for him. As for the 9th realm, originally, those experts of the 9th realm were confident that they could deal with Yi Shiwen, but now it seemed that it was not as easy as they had imagined. Looking at the fate of Emperor Tianni, everyone roughly understood. Yi Shiwen had entered everyone's blacklist of super dangerous individuals with just this one blow. Especially the backers of the Fortune God dynasty in the 4 prefectures that Yi Shiwen had eradicated. They were dumbfounded, and their hearts were filled with complicated feelings. In the 4 prefectures, there were many big and small forces. Even within the same clan, there were many forces. These forces all had a backer in the Fortune God dynasty, but not everyone had the strength of Imperial Monarch Tianni. Only a few had the strength of the 7th realm or above. The number of these people was not small. Because of this, Emperor Tianni dared to intercept and kill Yi Shiwen. It was because Yi Shiwen had offended too many people in the process of cleaning up the 4 prefectures. Emperor Tianni was just their tacit representative. But now, most of these people had extinguished the thought of going against Yi Shiwen. Even the individual experts were extremely fearful of him. He was not only tyrannical, but what was more terrifying was that his ruthless and ruthless methods were even more ruthless than them. He was unscrupulous and lawless. This kind of person was more terrifying than anything else. After killing this Emperor Tianni in one blow, Yi Shiwen immediately chased after Emperor Tianni, but was really too late. After all, Emperor Tianni's strength was there. Even if Yi Shiwen's hands and feet were already very fast, he almost killed the interferer in the blink of an eye. But in such a short time, Emperor Tianni seized the opportunity to take a breather. He simply used the blood escape and burned his life source. In an instant, he escaped into the Fortune God's capital. And after he escaped into the Fortune God's capital, Yi Shiwen naturally could not continue to chase after him. After all, there were many experts in the Fortune God's capital, and there were more than 1 or 2 who were stronger than Emperor Tianni. No one dared to act rashly in this place. Yi Shiwen stopped in the sky. He inevitably revealed a disappointed look on his face. He had missed this opportunity. Next time, Emperor Tianni would definitely not be so careless, unless he could step into the 9th realm one day. At that time, even if he did not use the universe creation palm, he was confident that he could kill Emperor Tianni. And if he wanted to step into the 9th realm, he did not know how long it would take. It was really too difficult. The only advantage was that after this battle, even if Emperor Tianni's cultivation was profound, his vitality would definitely be greatly damaged, especially when he actually burned his life source at the end. The life source of an emperor was the most precious thing in the world. After burning a part of it, it was unknown how long it would take to replenish it. In fact, a mishap might even cause the realm to fall temporarily. This time, Emperor Tianni definitely went for wool and came home shorn. He suffered a huge loss on Yi Shiwen's side. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen also suffered a small loss. 2 Universe Creation Palm had consumed 2 of his level 2 dragon veins. It should be known that level 2 dragon veins were very difficult to obtain even for ordinary emperors. They could even be used to stabilize destiny and establish a great sect. And now, 2 of them were consumed so easily. Even if Yi Shiwen was rich and overbearing, he could not help but feel the pain. The universe creation palm could not be performed under normal circumstances. Moreover, he realized that the power of the universe creation palm was far more than that. In other words, with his current strength, it was impossible for him to truly unleash the power of the universe creation palm to the extreme. As his strength improved, the power of the universe creation palm would also increase proportionally. This was what he valued the most. He knew that many people were looking at him now, but he had no intention of hiding. Not to mention that he did not even kill Emperor Tian-Yi this time. Even if he killed him, he would still have something to say. After all, many people saw that he was ambushed by Emperor Tian-Yi. The collapse of the mixed origin space was also seen by many people. Impressive. I didn't expect fellow Taoist Wu's cultivation to improve further. Congratulations. Yi Shiwen hadn't even left when Emperor Li's congratulatory message arrived. Fellow Taoist Wu, I'm convinced. This was a message sent by the butterfly sovereign. Yi Shiwen did not know whether to laugh or cry when he saw the words I'm convinced. Fellow Taoist Wu, I hope that you can reconsider the matter of our Blue Sky Association. This was the message that Huang had sent. She still wanted to recruit Yi Shiwen into the Clear Sky Association. They wanted to recruit him even more after Yi Shiwen had displayed a greater value. Fellow Taoist Wu, I wonder if you're interested in selling the physical body of that 7th Realm Emperor to us. This was a message sent by God Emperor Silver Frost. Yi Shiwen had just killed the 7th Realm Emperor, and he had his eyes on him immediately. In his heart, he had already regarded Yi Shiwen as a stable source of Emperor Lord corpses. It was not that others did not have this ability, but there were not many people like him who dared to make a move unscrupulously, not to mention that he did not have an organization behind him. Yi Shiwen replied to them one by one. In particular, Yi Shiwen rejected God Emperor Silver Frost's proposal directly. He did not need it for the time being. He would keep the physical body of the 7th Realm Emperor for now. He might need it in the future. Moreover, he could use the physical body of an emperor to nurture a large number of experts. Although it was impossible for them to become emperor lords, the effect was very significant for nurturing gods above Tao validation. However, what surprised him was that the battle emperor had also sent him a message using divine thoughts. He only gave him a reminder. Be careful of being too sharp, it will break easily. After expressing his gratitude, Yi Shiwen did not stay any longer and flew towards the direction of the human continent. He had not returned for thousands of years. There should have been huge changes there. In the creation divine capital, the ripples caused by this battle had just begun to ferment. I did not expect his strength to be stronger than we initially estimated. His improvement is too fast. We must think of a way to rope him into our Blue Sky Association. In a private room, Huang leaned against the window and said faintly. She looked at the figure that was thousands of miles away, and there was some shock in her eyes. Yi Shiwen's progress had really shocked her. One must know that she had never thought that Yi Shiwen would have such an ability even if she had estimated it in the beginning. According to her initial estimation, even if Yi Shiwen was roped into the Blue Sky Association, with his cultivation at the peak of the 7th realm, he would at most be an ordinary member. However, the strength that Yi Shiwen had displayed had far exceeded their initial evaluation. It made her feel as if she had misjudged him. At the same time, in the Battle Emperor's mansion, the fully armored Battle Emperor was practicing various martial arts in the garden. He glanced in Yi Shiwen's direction and immediately retracted his gaze. I will help you deal with this small trouble. I also want to see how far you can go in the end. Can you really break through to that legendary realm? Perhaps you have the qualifications to do so. Immediately after, the Battle Emperor immersed himself in practicing martial arts. It was impossible to tell that he had been paying attention to Yi Shiwen just now. In the Heavenly Sex branch in the Creation Divine Capital, there were also experts in charge who saw the previous scene. They hurriedly sent a message to the Heavenly Sex headquarters. At the same time, they increased the danger that Yi Shiwen posed by several levels. After all, an existence that could hunt down a 9th realm expert was not someone that they could provoke under any circumstances. At the same time, they also advised the headquarters to temporarily postpone their plans against Yi Shiwen. They should not act rashly before they truly understood his strength. In short, Yi Shiwen's battle had completely set off a storm in the creation divine capital. Chapter 32:18. Yi Shiwen's battle had set off a storm in the entire divine capital of fortune. In particular, Yi Shiwen had almost killed Emperor Tian Yi in front of everyone. Later on, he had instantly killed a 7th realm emperor. This made many people see his potential. It also made many people see his deterrent power. Many people had to carefully consider whether they could withstand Yi Shiwen's revenge before taking action against him. Most people in the 9th realm might not be able to withstand it. Most importantly, there were very few 9th realm existences who were alone. Almost all of them had forces. How long could they withstand Yi Shiwen's hostility? This battle made Yi Shiwen's weight in everyone's heart rise by a few levels again. It was not as simple as 8th realm, and he also entered the eyes of many organizations. Although he had the backing of the 4 provinces, in fact, in the eyes of many forces in the Fortune Divine Capital, it was equivalent to being alone because he did not have a heavyweight force as a backer. The relationship between him and the Battle Emperor had long been understood by everyone in the past thousands of years. Although there was some relationship, it could not be regarded as the Battle Emperor's faction. At most, it was a cooperative relationship. Therefore, he was still worth roping in. The Blue Sky Association was one of the first organizations to extend an olive branch to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen naturally did not know about this, but he could guess it. These things were not difficult to guess, but he had no interest in joining these organizations. These organizations each had their own interests. Once he joined, he would have to run around for these organizations. There was no need. With his current strength, he was definitely not strong enough to set up a flag and set up an independent force. But if it was just for self-protection, no one would really want to offend him to death. Except for Emperor Tian Yi, who really had an irreconcilable feud with him, the others would try their best to remain neutral. He still put his main experience on the human race. As long as the human race developed, it would also be a colossus, just like in the myriad heavens. Who would dare to look down on the human race? Of course, the situation in the Fortune Divine Dynasty was far more complicated than in the myriad heavens. Yi Shiwen spread his demon wings and traveled day and night. In just a few days, he quickly rushed back to the eastern region and returned to the human race. The 4 prefectures were completely different from when Yi Shiwen had left. The forces of the human race were mainly concentrated in the human province when Yi Shiwen left. But now, they had completely spread to the 4 provinces. The lifespan of the human race was very short to begin with. In the Fortune realm, the lifespan of the human race was much longer than in the myriad worlds due to the world's origin energy. Even so, 2,000 years was already several generations for the human race. They had long forgotten what it was like thousands of years ago and had already begun to settle down in the 4 provinces. With the submission of the heroes in the Land of Lightning, the other provinces were either swept clean or followed suit. Thus, the migration of the human race was a piece of cake. In terms of the fertility rate of the human race was originally a bit sparsely populated. However, after 2,000 years, the human race had completely become prosperous. This kind of tenacious survival ability made the other races gasp in amazement. The fact that the human race was able to survive in various parts of the Fortune Divine Dynasty under such unfavorable circumstances was definitely not just a coincidence or good luck. The news of Yi Shiwen's return to the Divine Dynasty quickly spread throughout the 4 prefectures. He was now the ruler of the 4 prefectures, and also the 4 prefectures patrol envoy appointed by the Fortune Divine Dynasty. It could be said that he was the supreme existence in the 4 prefectures. The moment he returned to the Divine Dynasty, Ren Huang and Feng Yishe had already arrived together. Patrol Envoy, we haven't seen each other for thousands of years. Patrol Envoy has become even stronger. Congratulations. Ren Huang saw Yi Shiwen and hurriedly cupped his hands in salute. Thousands of years had passed, and the human race's suppression of the various prefectures had gradually been completed. The remaining trivial matters were left to the subordinates to handle. Some of the thorns and nails left behind by the various prefectures had been uprooted by Ren Huang and Feng Shi in these 2,000 years. The remaining ones would not pose too much of a threat to the human race. Therefore, Ren Huang and Feng Shi finally had the time to take a breather. At this time, Yi Shiwen had already returned. Although they hadn't received any news about the divine capital of fortune, they could still see that Yi Shiwen had become more powerful. For an emperor lord, they could clearly feel the slightest change in the laws of heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen didn't deliberately conceal it, so he was immediately captured by them. Compared to the past, Yi Shiwen's strength had become stronger and more unfathomable. Ren Huang and Feng Shi were happy because the stronger Yi Shiwen was, the more benefits the human race would receive. Yes, I have improved. Yi Shiwen faintly smiled and said, I've seen it when I came back. The 4 prefectures have completely fallen under the control of our human race. This is all thanks to the 2 of you. I'm ashamed that I haven't been of any help. Inspector, you're flattering us. You've already killed those imperial emperors and the rest of his clowns. They're not powerful at all. We're just doing some trivial things. Feng Yi hurriedly said. Yi Shiwen looked at the 2 with a smile and said, This time, I have gained a lot from the Fortune Martial Pavilion. There are also many insights. When the time comes, I will sort them out, and the 2 of you can come over to review them. Ren Huang and Feng Shi looked at each other, and their faces showed some joy. For them, in addition to paying attention to the development of the human race, the most important thing was to improve their own strength. In this regard, there was nothing more important than Yi Shiwen's insights. It could save them many years of time. Fu Zheng, we do not dare. We are all here to admire. Ren Huang said. In front of Yi Shiwen, he would no longer put on airs. Whether it was status or strength, Yi Shiwen surpassed him by too much. It was just like the time when his master was still in power. He would not have the slightest thought of competing with Yi Shiwen. The 2 then told Yi Shiwen about the development of the human race in the past 2,000 years. It was similar to what Yi Shiwen had seen outside. It was indeed thriving. The internal problems of the human race that had been piling up for a long time had also been alleviated with this great conquest, especially in terms of resources. The resources of the original half-prefecture had suddenly expanded to the resources of the 4 prefectures. This had allowed the human race's strength to develop by leaps and bounds. Many experts of the human race had been continuously improving because they had obtained several times more resources than usual. During this time, a large number of experts had emerged from all levels. It could be said that the human race had entered a stage of rapid development. It could be said that the emergence of experts in the human race in the past 2,000 years was almost comparable to the results of the previous tens of thousands of years of development. The 2 most important factors of cultivation, power techniques and resources, had been solved by Yi Shiwen. The bottleneck of the human race's development had suddenly disappeared without a trace. How could these experts not erupt? Moreover, it was still too early to reach the next bottleneck. It would take a long time for them to reach the new bottleneck. However, by that time, it would also mean that the human race had thoroughly established a foothold in the 4 prefectures. Moreover, their strength would also reach an unimaginable level. They could be called a quasi-strong race. Yi Shiwen wasn't surprised when he heard this. After all, these things were what he had expected in the beginning. In fact, there weren't any big discrepancies. His computing ability had already reached an unprecedented level. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to calculate it. Human Emperor and Feng Shi seemed to be reporting to each other. They left directly after reporting these things. They did not stay for long. In the divine court, apart from Yi Shiwen, only Sky-Shaking Thunder Emperor was left. Previously, Sky-Shaking Thunder Emperor had obtained the experience of Yi Shiwen's breakthrough. For him, it was like a sweet dew after a long drought. He suddenly comprehended something. It seemed that he was about to break through. Now, he was still in closed-door training. Yishiwen pinched his fingers and calculated that he would come out of closed-door training after several hundred years. However, when he came out of closed-door training, he would be in existence of the seventh realm. Yishiwen was different from the other outstanding heroes of the Thunder Lake region. He had absolute trust in the sky-shaking Thunder Emperor under his control. Therefore, he was very happy in his heart. There were very few experts of the human race who could handle the situation. Moreover, he was the only expert of the human race who could handle the current situation. As sky-shaking Thunder Emperor advanced further and reached the seventh realm, he was no longer the only top expert of the human race. However, this matter could not be rushed. These were the foundation of the human race. It could not be changed in a short period of time. At this moment, someone came to report that an old friend had come to see him. This person was none other than Dan Emperor, who had not been seen for many years. Soon, Dan Emperor was welcomed into the divine court and sat opposite to Yishiwen. "Brother Dan Emperor, we haven't seen each other for many years. You are still as elegant as before." Yishiwen looked at Dan Emperor with a smile. He saw that Dan Emperor's cultivation level had advanced further and reached the fourth realm. He could be considered to have stepped into the middle level of the Emperor-Emperor realm. He was no longer at the bottom of the Emperor-Emperor realm. In fact, this was the normal situation of the Emperor-Emperor's cultivation. Without the help of Divine Pill, Dan Emperor's cultivation progress would be slower. At this realm, every step forward was extremely difficult. Dan Emperor looked at Yishiwen and sighed in his heart. Why was it so difficult for others to cultivate? But for this person in front of him, it was as easy as eating and drinking. He thought that he was not bad. However, when he compared himself with Yishiwen, it was really infuriating. Chapter 32:19. When there was only a small gap, he was still in the mood to compare with Yishiwen. However, when the gap was too big, he couldn't even bring himself to compare with Yishiwen anymore. "I can't compare with Martial Emperor. I've just come out of closed-door training, and I've already heard of Martial Emperor's deeds. You've really earned a lot of face for all the people in the universe," Dan Emperor said with a smile. "It's been thousands of years since we last met. May I know why Martial Emperor is here this time?" Yishiwen asked directly. As the saying goes, one doesn't visit a temple for no reason. Emperors weren't ordinary people. Why would he come to visit? To be honest, I've been wandering outside for many years. Now, I want to find a place to settle down. I wonder if Martial Emperor is willing to take me in? Dan Emperor looked at Yishiwen with a smile. Yishiwen's face suddenly showed a bit of joy. He quickly said, "Of course. It's the honor of our human race that Martial Emperor is willing to join us. I can directly make a decision and give Martial Emperor the position of a guest. This position is comparable to our Supreme Elder. What do you think?" Yishiwen couldn't suppress the joy on his face. If it was just an ordinary Emperor joining, he wouldn't be so excited. However, Dan Emperor was different. He was a professional. With the addition of Dan Emperor, a large number of pellets could be provided at any time. The strength of the human race would also soar. This kind of professional would be in high demand no matter where he went. He would be treated as a guest of honor no matter where he went. Yishiwen was also a bit puzzled. He said, "It's the honor of our human race that Martial Emperor is willing to condescend. However, with Martial Emperor's ability, you will be treated as a guest of honor no matter where you go. Our human race has only just established 4 prefectures. It's nothing compared to those great sects." Dan Emperor smiled faintly and said, "Indeed, the power of the human race isn't much now. However, it's better to provide timely help than to add flowers to a brocade. I'm optimistic about Martial Emperor's future. Is this reason sufficient?" "Sufficient, very sufficient. Ha ha ha, welcome Martial Emperor." Yishiwen laughed loudly. He was still very confident in himself. "Since Martial Emperor wants to join our human race, have you considered establishing a sect and passing down your alchemy skills? There are many talented people in our human race. I believe you will be satisfied with them." The Dindi Emperor said, "Of course. I plan to reopen the Divine Dan realm on Mount Bujo. At that time, I will have to trouble you." Naturally, Dan Emperor was well aware of the purpose of Yi Shiwen's proposal. If the human clan could learn alchemy from him, not to mention the addition of the great way of the human clan, the benefits to the development of the human clan were simply indescribable. He had no intention of refusing, since he wanted to join the human race. These were the most basic requirements. Moreover, everything was just as Yi Shiwen had said. There were many talented people in the human race who could inherit his great way. It was only a matter of time. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but sigh with emotion when he heard the words Divine Dan Realm. He still remembered that he had obtained great benefits in the Divine Dan Realm many years ago. At that time, a Dan Emperor was simply a legendary figure to Yi Shiwen. A person who could pierce through the world with a single palm strike was the most terrifying existence in the world for him. Yi Shiwen owed the Pill Emperor a favor because of this. So, he was willing to repay the Pill Emperor with a higher standard at this time. And he was willing to repay the Pill Emperor's favor. Good. Haha. I think if Human Emperor and Feng Yishe know that Dan Emperor has joined, they will be very happy. Yi Shiwen said with a hearty laugh. The matter of the human clan was finally on the right track. After a few years, the foundation of the human clan in the 4 regions would no longer be shaken. As long as he was alive, the foundation of the human clan could be said to be as stable as Mount Tai. Yi Shiwen immediately sent the news to Human Emperor and Feng Yishe. Both of them immediately rushed over. They looked very excited. It was not only because the special ability of Dan Emperor was very important to the human clan, but more importantly, Dan Emperor was alone. So, it was the most suitable for him to integrate into the human clan. Although there were also 2 emperors in Shur province who were considered to be under the command of the human clan, they themselves were supported by a powerful clan. After all, they were not considered to be part of the human clan. It was difficult for them to truly integrate into the core of the human clan. At the foot of Mount Buzhou, a celebration was quickly arranged. In addition to celebrating Yi Shiwen's return, it was also to celebrate the joining of Dan Emperor. For the human clan, this was also of great significance. In the following period of time, Yi Shiwen was also very busy. He mainly received the leaders of the big and small forces in the 4 regions to pay their respects. After Yi Shiwen's previous massacre, they no longer dared to look down on Yi Shiwen. This time, when Yi Shiwen summoned them, they naturally did not dare to disobey. After comforting the leaders of the various forces in the 4 regions, Yi Shiwen did not show up again. He directly went into closed-door training. As for the matter of welcoming Dan Emperor, it was handled by Human Emperor and Feng Yishe. As for himself, he began to try to rush to the peak of the 8th realm. In the Creation Martial Pavilion, he was already very close to the peak of the 8th realm. If it was not for the fact that he had to comprehend the universe creation palm and did not have the dragon vein to use, he might have had the opportunity to step into the peak of the 8th realm in the Creation Martial Pavilion. This time, when he returned to the human province, he took this opportunity to break through to the peak of the 8th realm in one go. This was not a big deal. He still had a mysterious creation pill. With the medicinal power of the mysterious creation pill, it was easy for him to step into the peak of the 8th realm. In addition to this, Yi Shiwen's real purpose was to see if he could break through to the 9th realm in one go. The 9th realm was the peak of the Emperors. It was a peerless powerhouse, and the requirements for the comprehension of the Great Tao were very high. Fortunately, this trip to the Creation Martial Pavilion was too timely and too necessary for him. As long as he could completely digest the gains from this trip, then stepping into the 9th realm was definitely not a dream. Therefore, even he did not know when he would come out of this closed-door training. It might be 10,000 years, or it might be 100,000 years, or it might even be 1,000,000 years. No one could tell when an emperor was in closed-door training. Fortunately, the human clan was already on the right track, and there were not many things that he really needed to worry about. Therefore, Yi Shiwen completely entered the state of closed-door training. In a secret space in the Divine Court, Yi Shiwen sat cross-legged on a cloud bed. Behind him, the radiance of the Mingxin ancient tree was overflowing with colorful lights, illuminating the entire space abnormally bright. In front of him, the mysterious creation pill was constantly rotating. Every time it rotated, a part of the medicinal power would be stripped off and then poured into Yishiwen's body. Yishiwen's martial power was also increasing inch by inch. With the previous trip to the Creation Martial Pavilion, Yishiwen's martial art comprehension was more than enough for the peak of the 8th realm. All that was left was the accumulation of martial power. Moreover, with the help of the mysterious creation pill, Yishiwen's speed of improvement was extremely fast. The spirit energy in the entire space was like a tide, constantly rising and falling along with Yishiwen's breathing. This cycle repeated over and over again. No one knew how much time had passed, but it was like a lifetime. Yishiwen was motionless, as if he was dead. The only thing that could prove that Yishiwen was still alive was his rising chi and blood and martial power. It was like a raging tide, constantly discharging and spreading in all directions. Although the existence of the 8th realm was not as good as the peak of the 9th realm like the Sovereign King, in fact, it was already close to this realm, and Yishiwen was climbing to the peak of this realm. Time passed minute by minute, and 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. The tide of spirit energy brought about by Yishiwen's breathing was getting bigger and more intense, so much so that it had even triggered the various formations in the sky at the same time and began to suppress the cracks in the space caused by the tide of spirit energy. This was to completely suppress the strange phenomenon brought about by Yishiwen's cultivation and not cause a sensation in the outside world. No one knew how much time had passed, but this situation of continuous growth and expansion finally reached a kind of peak, an unprecedented level. Finally, as if breaking free from the shackles, he rushed up again in one breath. Boom! All kinds of spiritual power surged in Yishiwen's body, and in every spiritual power, there was spirit energy containing the law of the Great Way, and its power was extremely terrifying. He finally opened his eyes all at once, and slowly said to himself, finally stepped into the peak of the 8th realm. As soon as Yishiwen's voice fell, the strange phenomenon on his body was completely retracted, and the surging spiritual power also suddenly calmed down, as if nothing had happened. In these 1,000 years, he cultivated day and night, and finally pushed his cultivation from the 8th realm to the peak of the 8th realm. Yishiwen could feel that his cultivation was getting slower and slower. One must know that he was originally very close to the peak of the 8th realm, only a step away, but just this step away actually took him 1,000 years. Cultivating to such a level, it was really difficult to take each step forward, and every step of progress could only be achieved after tens of thousands of efforts. And in between, and did not know how much price had been paid, but fortunately, in the end, he still stepped into the peak of the 8th realm. He could feel that his strength had greatly improved. Although he had not yet broken through the limit, the growth was already extremely impressive. If he had this combat power when he was chasing after Emperor Tian, he would definitely not have been able to escape. Stepping into the peak of the 8th realm not only meant that his combat power had risen to another level, but also that he already had the foundation to attack the 9th realm. After a short pause, Yishiwen closed his eyes again and began to attack the 9th realm. Chapter 32:20. Yishiwen was crazily cultivating to break through to the 9th realm, but for the outside world, life still had to go on. In the blink of an eye, thousands of years had passed. Many generations of the human race had passed. For a race with a short lifespan like the human race, thousands of years were enough for people to forget a lot of things. The new generation of the human race had forgotten the hardships of conquering the 4 regions. For them, the human race was originally the master of the 4 regions. The dark race and the stone race were just small races under the rule of the human race. Probably only those human cultivators who had achieved immortality would remember these things, but they were already very confused. In the past thousands of years, the human clan had been too powerful. They had completely suppressed the 4 regions. Especially after the addition of Alchemy Emperor, The human clan had never been short of high-end medicinal pellets. In addition, Yishuan had opened up many ancient books of the Great Path. Experts of the human clan were constantly erupting like a geyser. Among the surrounding forces, the human clan was no longer the weakest existence. At the foot of Buzhou Mountain of the human race, a figure in a green robe was walking on a path between Buzhou Mountain. Although it was the holy mountain of the human race, Buzhou Mountain was too big. Not all places had jade-paved roads. There were also some forest paths, which slowly became roads after walking for a long time. Wherever this person walked, even the flowers and plants were extraordinarily bright, as if they had received some extraordinary nourishment. In the blink of an eye, thousands of years have passed. Unfortunately, in addition to consolidating the peak of the 8th realm, it is still a little short of breaking through to the 9th realm. I can't be anxious. I can't be anxious. The person said slowly. There was no look of disappointment on his face. Who else could this person be but Yishuan? After he broke through to the peak of the 8th realm, thousands of years had passed. However, in these thousands of years, in addition to his cultivation becoming more profound and completely consolidating his realm, he was not able to step into the 9th realm as he wished. Although he was regretful, he was not anxious because he knew that this matter could not be rushed at all. Many emperors spent more than 100,000 years to break through from the 1st realm to the 2nd realm, and many even spent millions of years. With his cultivation speed, there was nothing to be dissatisfied with. He did not tell anyone that he had come out of his closed-door training this time. The human tribe had been put in order by the human sovereign. If one used the Qi observation spell to observe Buzhou Mountain, he would see that the fate of the human tribe had become more and more majestic. Compared with what it used to be, it could not be mentioned in the same breath. This was also the proof that the human race was thriving. Following the continuous rise of the human race's luck, the human sovereign's cultivation had improved again in these thousands of years. He had stepped into the 4th realm and was finally able to stabilize the situation. Yishuan naturally understood such a method. It was to rely on the destiny of the race or force to make a breakthrough. However, Yishuan never used it because it would also be held hostage by the race and force. Once the human race declined, the strength of the human emperor might not be able to hold on, and he would continuously regress. It could be said that there were advantages and disadvantages. For the emperors who could only make further progress with great difficulty, it was undoubtedly a good path. Not everyone could be like Yishuan, who stepped from the 1st realm to the peak of the 8th realm in a short period of tens of thousands of years. With the human emperor in charge, and the sky-shaking thunder emperor, who had stepped into the 7th realm some time ago, there was no need for him to worry about the affairs of the human race at all. In this case, he was happy to be idle. No matter when or where, he was not suitable to be the leader of a race, because he really did not have the patience to deal with such huge mundane affairs. In his heart, only endless martial arts could make him unswervingly pursue it. Yishuan looked over. On a cliff 100 miles away, a figure was trying hard to climb. On the top of the cliff, a strange flower was swaying in the wind, exuding bursts of medicinal fragrance. Originally, Yishuan only glanced at it casually, but then he was stunned. It was a girl about 17 or 18 years old. Her skin was as white as snow, and her appearance was pretty. Even if she was wearing plain clothes, there was no way to hide her peerless beauty. With Yishuan's vision, what kind of beauty had he not seen? No matter what kind of beauty he saw, it was not enough to change his state of mind. However, when he saw the face of this girl and his divine thoughts, he was completely stunned. Manyan. Yishuan slowly opened his mouth and said these 2 words. He only felt that his throat was dry, as if something was stuck in his chest, and he could not say it no matter how hard he tried. This girl's appearance was exactly the same as the princess of the Ashura clan, Manyan. Scenes gushed out in his mind, and all the things that he thought he had forgotten all came to his mind. The peerless beauty, the heroic spirit, the woman who was going to become the first female emperor since ancient times. Yishuan had thought that he could see her figure on the road to becoming an emperor. She had that kind of innate talent and conditions. After all, becoming an emperor wasn't something that was out of reach in the era after the rules had been broken. So, it wouldn't be a barrier to all outstanding talents anymore. Yishuin had thought that he would be able to see her figure on the road to becoming an emperor. It was a pity that she did not make it in time for such a great era. She perished in the trial of the Ashura clan. After that separation, that kind of smile could no longer be seen. Only a lonely grave was left, and there was no place for her to talk to. It's just a coincidence. They look alike. Yishuin shook his head and then said with a smile, "There were all kinds of strange things in this world. It was just a girl who looked like Manyun, so it could not be her. Moreover, Manyun was the proud princess of the Ashura clan, and the girl in front of him was just an ordinary human girl. How could they be the same person? It was just that they looked too similar, causing him to be momentarily dazed. After death, death was death, and there was no possibility of resurrection. Even with his current cultivation, which could be said to be all-powerful, it was still impossible for him to resurrect a truly dead person. He had tried to find a way to resurrect Manyun from the scriptures of the underworld and the netherworld kingdom, but there was no way at all. Even the underworld and the netherworld kingdom had no way to resurrect Manyun. Manyun's death was too complete. She died in the trial of the Ashura clan, and her soul scattered. Yishuin did not even have the chance to reconstruct his body. Suddenly, the girl did not hold on tightly and directly slipped down from the cliff. It's over, I'm going to die, father." The girl closed her eyes, but she still did not feel any pain after a long time. Then, she tried to open her eyes and found that she did not know why, but she was floating less than a foot above the ground. "Little guy, you are so rash. If you had not met me, you would have been in real danger today." However, she heard a gentle voice coming from behind, and the girl quickly stood up. She turned around and saw a young man who was about 20 years old. He had a delicate face and was dressed in a green robe. His appearance did not look very outstanding, but she did not know why, but he gave her a special feeling. "Call me little guy. You don't look very old," the girl muttered, and then cupped her hands and said, "Thank you for saving my life. This little girl really has no way to repay you." This girl was obviously not an inexperienced person. After all, this was the sacred mountain of the human race, and she could see all kinds of experts flying around since she was a child. Although her family was the most ordinary commoner, she was much more knowledgeable than the people in other places. At least, she knew that the person in front of her should be the legendary warrior cultivator of her ancestors. "No way to repay you? Shouldn't you be saying that you want to repay me with your body?" The corner of Yishuin's mouth raised into a playful smile. The girl's snow-white neck suddenly turned red. Although she was more generous than the average girl, she was still a young girl in her teens after all. "No, I can't go with you. I still have to take care of my father." The girl looked at Yishuin very seriously and said. Yishuin suddenly laughed. He was just playing a little joke, but he did not expect this girl who looked like Manyun to take it seriously. "I was just joking. You don't have to be so serious. What about your family? Why did they let a weak girl like you come out to pick herbs, and in such a dangerous place?" Yishuin could not help but ask. Because of the reorganization of the world's Lingqi, the laws of the world were also slightly different. Of course, the human race in the fortune world could not be really weak. Even the human race who had not cultivated before were generally much stronger than the human race on Earth, in Yishuin's impression. Otherwise, how could a young girl like her climb up such a high cliff? On Earth, she was simply a superhuman. "I can only rely on my father, but he is sick now, so I have no choice but to come out to pick herbs." This young girl was also naive and did not hide anything. She directly told him everything. Of course, perhaps even she herself did not realize that she felt that this young man in front of her looked very kind and could make people feel close to him from the bottom of his heart. She was naive and could feel the likes and dislikes of others the most. "So that's how it is." Yishuin sighed and said, "If you don't mind, I will go to your house to sit." "Of course I don't mind, but..." The girl immediately agreed and then said somewhat shyly, "But what?" Yishuin asked. "Our house is really too shabby at this time. Don't laugh at us." The young girl hesitated for a moment before she finally spoke. That's nothing, I don't mind, let's go. Chapter 32:21. This girl was also naive and had no intention of guarding against him. In her eyes, the person in front of her was her savior. In that case, there was nothing to guard against. He followed the girl and arrived at a small village at the foot of the Bujou Mountain. Such villages could be seen everywhere at the foot of the Bujou Mountain. In fact, they could be seen everywhere. This girl's house was on the edge of this small village. It was almost out of this small village. Due to the strength of the human race, especially in the core base camp of the human race, Mount Bujou, there were no powerhouses of other races. Therefore, the human race didn't need to form a city to protect themselves. Scattered villages and even tribes were spread all over the foot of Mount Bujou. Along the way, the girl also told Yi Xuan her name, Bian Xiaoyu. She had a father. The villagers called him Father Bian, and this time she had come to pick herbs for her father who was seriously ill in bed. Yi Xuan glanced around and roughly saw that Bian Xiaoya's family was obviously not popular in the village. He could tell from their location that it was too remote. It was a wooden house that wasn't very big. Yi Xuan glanced around and saw through everything. The wooden house was divided into two parts. A middle-aged man was lying on the bed in the outer room. However, this middle-aged man was already very weak at this time. It could be seen that he had suffered a very serious injury. He was lying on the bed for one day at a time. The inner room was Bian Xiaoya's boudoir. Although there was no exquisite decoration, it looked quite neat and clean. There were only the father and daughter in this house. As for her mother, she was already dead. Yi Xuan didn't need to know this. He could easily judge this by looking at her face. Even if Yi Xuan wanted to, he could even deduce when her mother had passed away, the reason for her death, and the situation at that time. Deducing the fate of a few mortals who didn't have any spiritual power was very easy. Bian Xia quickly walked to the front of the wooden house and said somewhat bashfully, "Immortal Master, please come in." Yi Xuan stepped in and saw that the man lying on the bed quickly struggled to get up. He then looked at Bian Xiaoya with a somewhat puzzled look in his eyes. "Xiaoyu, cough, this is—" Old man Bian opened his mouth, breathing heavily as he spoke, as if every word he said required all his strength. "Father, quickly lie down. This celestial master saved me just now." Bian Xia hurriedly went forward and laid her father down. "Thank you, immortal master, for saving my daughter's life. I can't thank you enough," Father Bian quickly said to Yi Xuan. Then he looked at Bian Xiaoyu. His eyes were filled with affection for his daughter. How could he not know what his daughter was going out to do? However, he had no other way. His family had fallen to the point where his daughter had to go out and work to support the family. "It's nothing, it's just a piece of cake." Yi Xuan waved his hand and said, "Immortal Master, please save my father. Xiaoyu is willing to do anything to repay Immortal Master." Bian Xiaoya suddenly knelt down and said, there was a playful smile on Yi Xuan's mouth. No wonder she would bring him back without hesitation. It was not because she was naive, but because she still wanted to save her father. With her own ability, there was no way, but in her opinion, Yi Xuan might have a way to easily save her from falling off the cliff. In her eyes, it was already amazing. "What's wrong? Didn't you call a doctor?" Yi Xuan asked noncommittally. "Our family has no money. Moreover, the doctor in the village is also unwilling to treat my father because of me." Bian Xiaoya revealed a somewhat uncomfortable expression. "Why?" Yi Xuan asked. "They said that I am an unlucky person. When I was born, my mother died." The uncomfortable expression on Bian Xiaoya's face had completely disappeared. After so many years, she had already become accustomed to these things. "It's because I didn't have the ability to take care of this child. This child is a good child. My body has been poor all year round. It's her who has been taking care of me. It's my incompetence," Old Man Bian said. His face was full of apology and sadness. If it was in his previous life, Yi Xuan would not hesitate to scold them for being superstitious. But now it was different. The villagers might be ignorant, but it was not without reason. He was about to check on Bian Xiaoya's situation. Suddenly, a noise came from outside. The demon girl of Bien family hasn't left yet? A slightly sharp voice came, followed by a burst of hurried footsteps. After a while, the outside of the wooden house was already full of villagers. Bien Xiaoye, we gave you a month to leave. You actually dare to come back now? At this time, an old man came forward and scolded, "If you continue like this, don't blame us for not showing mercy. We have already given you a way out. Uncles, when my father gets better, I will definitely leave." Bien Xiaoye quickly said, "But my father is like this, I really can't leave. Do you know that because of your existence, our village has suffered a lot of injustice?" The immortal teacher we invited back said that because of your existence, this village has suffered so many disasters. Another sturdy middle-aged man said, I'm sorry, I will definitely leave, give me some more time." Bien Xiaoye repeatedly apologized, and even repeatedly kowtowed and said, "Do you really want to force us, father and daughter, to die?" Bien Xiaoye repeatedly coughed, exhausted the strength of his whole body, and said, "Old Bien, don't blame us for being heartless. We are thinking for you, so you have to think for us too, isn't that right?" A villager couldn't help but say. However, when he thought of himself, his heart hardened again. Looking at the confrontation between Bien father and daughter and the villagers, Yishuan could not help but slightly sigh, and then said, "You all go back." Yishuan's voice seemed to have a magical power. The villagers who originally planned to make a big fuss actually obediently turned around and left, without the slightest movement. Bien father and daughter also widened their eyes, obviously also couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that these villagers, who would never give up, actually let them go so easily. After Yishuan finished speaking, he directly opened his double pupils, looked at Bien Xiaoye, and was surprised to find that there was an extremely pure magic power in Bien Xiaoye's body. This magic power was constantly transforming Bien Xiaoye's body, and this was the root cause of Bien Xiaoye's rejection. No wonder her mother died at birth. How could an ordinary mortal woman bear this level of magic power? But what made him even more puzzled was that Bien Xiaoye's body actually had such pure magic power. Even an ordinary devil race couldn't have such pure magic power. Is there really reincarnation? At this moment, this discovery had a huge impact on Yishuan. It was simply subverting his worldview, because he had never thought of the existence of real reincarnation. In the past, he had seen so-called ancient people reincarnate, but in fact, most of them were just a trace of spirit that escaped and was reborn. For example, the Fortune Heaven Lord that he met previously was actually a magical reincarnation, which was already very strange. However, he had never heard of a true reincarnation. As far as he knew, Man Yun had completely died. Otherwise, the Shura clan would not leave him alone if there was even a slight possibility of saving his DSLR. Moreover, after he became an emperor, he had tried to divine it, but he could not divine anything useful at all. Moreover, how could a reincarnation be reborn in the fortune world? This was simply impossible. There were too many unbelievable things. Whether it was the extreme similarity in appearance or the incredible magic power in the body, it all impacted Yishuan's worldview. He believed that he had a very deep understanding of life and death, but now he had a faint feeling of being subverted. This feeling was like his entire body was about to be torn apart, and he was about to be subverted. For a cultivator, the most frightening thing was their own Tao being subverted. In that case, it was normal for their cultivation to plummet overnight, and they might even die from qi deviation. Fortunately, Yishuan wasn't the Lord of Inferno or Mingdi. These two cultivated the law of death, and if they found out, perhaps their Tao would collapse. For Yishuan, the law of death was just one of them. Although it was shaken, it was quickly suppressed. Obviously, there must be something else that Yishuan didn't know. Seeing that Yishuan didn't speak for a long time, Bien Xiao boldly looked at Yishuan and then said, "Immortal Master, please save my father. I am willing to do anything to repay Immortal Master." Bien Xiaoye's words pulled him out of his own self-entanglement. Yi Shiwen pondered for a moment, and then said, I can save your father, but I have a condition. As long as a mortal master is willing to save my father, I am willing to agree to 1,000 conditions, or even 10,000 conditions. Bien Xiaoye said quickly. Her snow-white neck was flushed, and she seemed to have thought of something. I only have one condition. I see that your aptitude is not bad. Are you interested in cultivating with me? Yi Shiwen said lightly. Xiaoye, what are you waiting for? Quickly thank your master. Bien Xiaoye's father had eaten salt for many more years than Bien Xiaoye, and his reaction was obviously much faster than Bien Xiaoye's. Yes, I am willing. Bien Xiaoye greets master. Bien Xiaoye also reacted quickly and said quickly. She only thought that Yi Shiwen was just an ordinary cultivator, the immortal master that the villagers talked about, but she didn't know that this was a great opportunity for her. All right, get up. I will treat your father first. Yi Shiwen said. Bien Xiaoye quickly got up and rubbed her aching knees. Her expression was a little strange, and Yi Shiwen found it funny. Chapter 32:22. Although Father Bien's injury was very serious, and his breathing was weak, if no one took care of him, he probably wouldn't be able to hold on for a long time. However, for Yi Shiwen, it was nothing at all. With just a wave of his hand, a stream of life source flowed into Father Bien's body. How powerful was the Sovereign Lord's origin! Not only did it heal all of his injuries in one go, but it also expelled the impurities in his body and cleansed his tendons and marrows. The impurities would not form outside his body and would directly evaporate in midair. Even if there was no aptitude, under Yi Shiwen's transformation, he could also become a peerless genius. With this transformation, even if he didn't cultivate, he could easily live for hundreds or thousands of years without any pressure. Father Bien suddenly felt that his body was suddenly better. He hadn't felt this feeling of being as light as a swallow for many years. One must know that because of his injury, he only felt that his whole body was heavy. Whether it was walking or lying down, it was very uncomfortable. But now, he only felt that his whole body was completely reborn, and he felt like he had become another person. Thank you, immortal master, for saving my life. Father Bien said quickly. He only felt very happy. This immortal master seemed to be very powerful. His daughter became his disciple, and her future was simply limitless. It's just a small effort. Yi Shiwen said, Xiaoyu, are you ready? If you want to be my disciple, you can't continue to stay. Bien Xiaoyu looked at Father Bien and was a little hesitant. Silly girl, why do you still care about me? I am now strong, as if I have returned to the time when I was young. Are you still afraid that I can't take care of myself? Father Bien said quickly. This was not him comforting his daughter. This was also his feeling. His appearance had also suddenly become a lot younger. Just from the appearance alone, he only looked a little older than Bien Xiaoyu. All right, I understand. Master, I'm ready. Bien Xiaoyu said, Well, you don't have to worry about it. You can come down and see your father when you are successful in your practice. The place where you practice isn't anywhere else but in this Buzhou mountain. Don't look down on Buzhou mountain because it's very big. However, it's actually just a short distance away from a successful practitioner. Yi Shiwen said in a comforting manner. Understand, Bien Xiaoyu said. After listening to Yi Shiwen's words, she felt a lot more at ease. She was still young and didn't know much, but she had heard a lot about the legends of those high and mighty experts. So, it was not difficult for her to travel 1,000 miles in a day. It was just that she did not know that a truly powerful movement technique was far more than just advancing 1,000 miles in a day. All right, let's go, Yi Shiwen said. He felt that he had gained enough from this trip. Perhaps this was the fundamental reason why he suddenly felt like going out for a walk. Before Bien Xiaoye could react, she felt a cloud rising under her feet. Then, under the cover of this cloud, she flew towards the peak of Buzhou Mountain. He's really flying. Bien Xiaoye was lying on top of the cloud and couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. Although she already knew that her master was an immortal master, she still couldn't hide her astonishment when she actually flew. The quality of the human race in the Fortune God dynasty was generally relatively high, but at most, they could only climb rocks and walk on walls. Before they cultivated, flying was still an unattainable dream. Because this was an ability that humans did not possess, it could be called a magical power. It involved the specific application of the principles and belonged to something that violated common sense. It was not something that ordinary people could do. This is natural. In the future, when you learn our unique movement technique, flying will be just a piece of cake. Yishuin said with a smile, Master, how many disciples do we have in this lineage? Bien Xiaoya asked. In this lineage of mine, in this Fortune God dynasty, you're the only official disciple. There are 2 others that I have also taught martial arts to, but they are not official disciples. Yishuin said. At that time, he was still drifting, so naturally, he did not have the idea of accepting disciples. So I'm a big world, Bien Xiaoya said. And you can also say that. Yishuin said. He had disciples in the myriad heavens world, but obviously, it was unlikely that they would come over. In this Fortune God dynasty, this little girl was indeed a big world. He had no intention of accepting disciples in large numbers. If this lineage wanted to flourish, it obviously depended on Bien Xiaoya and the others. Until now, I still don't know Master's name. Bien Xiaoya blinked her big eyes and asked, Master's name is Martial Emperor. You must remember it, lest you go out in the future and don't even know your own master. That would be a real joke. Yishuin said with a faint smile. Martial Emperor, so domineering. Bien Xiaoya came from a mountain village, so she did not understand the meaning of the title Emperor. If it was a cultivator with a little bit of inheritance, it would be impossible for them not to know what kind of existence a martial emperor was. Even if they did not know who a martial emperor was, they would know that it was a top figure between heaven and earth. Domineering? Ha ha ha. This was the first time Yishuin heard such an evaluation. Master, where are we going? Bien Xiaoya asked. She did not know what Yishuin was laughing at, because she felt that there was really nothing funny. We're almost there. Although Yishuin rarely rode on the clouds, after all, his realm was still there. In just a short time, they had already arrived at the top of Mount Buzhou. In the distance, it was divided into 2 parts. One was the Human Emperor Palace, and the other was the Divine Court. In comparison, the Human Emperor Palace was much more lively. In the Divine Court, except for the disciples sent by various forces to serve Yishuin, there was nothing else. After all, Yishuin had not accepted a single disciple so far, let alone having children and carrying forward the sect. Wow! Bien Xiaoya's small mouth opened slightly. As they got closer to the top of Mount Buzhou, she increasingly felt that perhaps this master was really different, far more powerful than she had imagined. The news of Yishuin returning to Mount Buzhou and accepting a disciple spread like wildfire. Soon, it spread throughout Mount Buzhou and even to the human province and the 4 provinces. As the only nominal master of the 4 provinces, his every move would attract the attention of countless people. How many people wanted to become a disciple of the martial emperor? The leaders of the major forces who sent their most outstanding disciples to serve Yishuin might have wanted to use this opportunity to let Yishuin have the opportunity to see their outstanding disciples and have the opportunity to become a disciple of Yishuin in the future. However, Yishuin had never accepted disciples, so they could not do anything about it. Fortunately, Yishuin would give them a few pointers from time to time, and it could be said that they had gained a lot. Just when they thought that Yishuin actually had no intention of accepting disciples, Yishuin's first disciple had already appeared out of nowhere. Woody Heaven, in front of the God Court on a public square, Bien Xiaoya looked around. Looking at this incomparably vast public square, there was a mortal mist everywhere, and spiritual chi gushed out. She only felt that even breathing here was an extremely blissful thing. In her eyes, she had never seen such a wonderful scene. This was the place where her master cultivated, and also the place where she used to cultivate. She was a little shocked, because although she knew that her master was an immortal master, in reality, all cultivators were called immortal masters, and she also knew that there were differences among immortal masters. So from the start, she had never thought that her master could be so powerful. However, Yishuan had asked her to wait here, so she could not leave. Moreover, she also liked this place very much, and only felt that she was living in a dream. She had never thought that one day she would be able to live in such a place. Is she the disciple that Master has accepted? Many figures gradually appeared, and they were all outstanding disciples sent by the leaders of the major forces to serve Yishuan. There were both men and women, and all of them were dressed in luxurious robes and had outstanding temperaments. In the outside world, all of them were outstanding existences, but here they were just ordinary disciples. However, even so, it was already an existence that many people yearned for even in their dreams. Not only were there many unreachable cultivation resources here, but there were also many cultivation theories and secret techniques that they had never heard of before. Moreover, they would also receive pointers from Yishuan from time to time. Apart from the unpleasant name, there was nothing bad about this place. Moreover, in the land of the 4 prefectures, the disciples of the divine palace, regardless of their status, were equally superior. There seems to be nothing special about her apart from her good looks, right? Why did Master suddenly accept a disciple? These people spoke with their divine senses and did not dare to speak directly. They were aware of the difference in status between superior and inferior. Bian Xiaoya suddenly became very nervous when she was stared at by so many people. She had lived on the edge since childhood and had always been the most despised existence by others. She had never experienced the experience of being stared at by so many people, not to mention that each of these people looked dignified and dignified. They were even more dignified than the most dignified person she had ever seen. Bian Xiaoya had just opened her mouth to speak a few words, and then she saw these men and women who she had felt superior and unreachable collectively kneel down and salute. Greetings to young master, young master. These thousands of people spoke in unison at the same time, and their imposing manner almost scared Bian Xiaoya. Then, she finally reacted and realized that the young master these people were talking about was none other than herself. However, she had never had experience in this aspect, and could only quickly say, "Quickly, get up." "Thank you, young master." Thousands of people said in unison, and then got up one after another. Suddenly, at this time, they saw a rainbow bridge descending from the sky and directly laid in front of Bian Xiaoya. Chapter 32-23. A rainbow bridge descended from the sky and landed directly in front of Bian Xiaoya. Just when Bian Xiaoya was a little overwhelmed, Yishuan's gentle voice came into her ears. "Step on the rainbow bridge." Bian Xiaoya didn't dare to hesitate, and quickly stepped on it. Suddenly, she felt her vision blurred, and when she sensed her surroundings again, she found herself in a big hall. Above the big hall, several figures were sitting side by side on a cloud bed, and the one in the middle was her master, Martial Emperor Yishuan. And beside him, there were several other people, and they also looked extremely powerful, aloof and different from everyone else. Even if she had never practiced, she could see that these people were completely different from the thousands of people she had seen before. She could see them clearly just by feeling. She couldn't tell what kind of feeling it was. She only felt that these people were the only rulers of the world, the center of the entire universe. These people were none other than Human Emperor, Fengyi Shi, Dani Emperor, and Sky-Shaking Thunder Emperor. These peerless emperors were currently on Mount Buzhou. With so many emperors guarding at the same time, Mount Buzhou was the true, sacred mountain of the human race. It was an impenetrable fortress. As long as they did not encounter a ruthless person like Yishuan, it would not be difficult for them to protect themselves. "Xiao Yu is here. Greet your master uncles first," Yishuan said with a faint smile. Although Bian Xiaoya did not know who these people were, she still knew what to do. She quickly cowed out. "Xiaoya greets the masters and masters. Get up. No need to be so polite. Feng Shi raised his hand, and Bian Xiaoye felt a gentle force lifting her up. She could not help but stand up. There was no change in the expressions of these people, but they felt a little strange in their hearts. Why did Yi Shiwen accept Bian Xiaoye as a disciple? With their eyesight, they could see Bian Xiaoye's bone structure at a glance. It was not bad, but in fact it was only good. Although she was outstanding, there were also some talents of this level in Yi Shiwen's divine palace. They had never seen Yi Shiwen accept a disciple. As for her beauty, it was not within their consideration. Was it a joke to accept a disciple just because she was beautiful? The disciples of the emperor were naturally different from ordinary people. They would not randomly accept disciples, otherwise the streets would be flooded. Yi Shiwen naturally saw the doubts in their hearts. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't randomly accept disciples. However, after some thought, he still told them what he had seen and heard, as well as some of his previous conjectures. So, I think she might be related to my old friend. If that's the case, then I will help her once. Yi Shiwen slowly explained everything. He didn't even have the intention to hide it from Bian Xiaoye, because there was no need. At this time, Bian Xiaoye also knew for the first time why Yi Shiwen accepted her as a disciple. She didn't know who Yi Shiwen was, but she was certain that he was extraordinary. It wasn't reasonable for such a big shot to accept her as a disciple, but now she understood. Am I really the reincarnation of Mannion? Bian Xiaoye couldn't help but have some doubts in her heart. She was different from Yi Shiwen, who was an emperor who had seen through life and death. In many folklore, reincarnation itself was a very normal thing. After a creature died, it would be reincarnated through various methods. This itself was common knowledge in her heart. Therefore, she was the easiest to accept. However, the human emperor and the others had undoubtedly subverted their understanding of the law of death. They didn't have a deep understanding of the law of death. In fact, they couldn't be compared with Yi Shiwen. However, they still had some basic knowledge. The reincarnation of the primordial spirit was just a kind of method, a kind of magical power, nothing more. It wasn't in the true sense that the primordial spirit could be reborn after the destruction of the primordial spirit. If this could also be reborn, then what did it use as a medium to be reborn? I think there must be something we haven't understood yet, or maybe this itself is a coincidence. In the boundless world, there are all kinds of strange things. Even with our abilities, we still can't be omniscient and omnipotent. Perhaps only fate, creation, heaven Lord can truly understand everything. Feng Shi finally said, even among the emperors, there's a lot of talk about the omniscient and omnipotent Lord of fortune creation. He was the #1 expert since ancient times, and after him, no one else was able to step into that realm. Under the circumstances that they couldn't pry into, many speculations came into being. Moreover, the Fortune God dynasty had never stopped these kinds of rumors. On the contrary, it added fuel to the fire, causing this kind of rumor to become even more clamorous. Yi Shiwen didn't comment on this kind of saying, because he also couldn't guess what kind of realm it was. The more one read on the cultivation network, the more one would know. Perhaps if one really reached a certain level, one could be omniscient and omnipotent. In any case, this little girl can be considered to be fated with me. So I will accept her. She will be my first disciple in the Fortune God dynasty. Yi Shiwen said. Everyone's expression became solemn, because they were very clear that for a lineage, the significance of the founding disciple and the last disciple was completely different. The former was responsible for carrying forward the sect, while the latter was equally important to pass on the legacy. This is our first meeting, and I don't have anything good to give you. This is a medicinal pill. It will be very useful until you reach the Tao realm. I will now disperse it and scatter it into your body, so that you can absorb it, said Dendi Emperor. A medicinal pill appeared in his hand, exuding a powerful medicinal efficacy. His palms slightly trembled, and the entire medicinal efficacy of the medicinal pill was forced out, turning into a ball of light, and directly flew into Bian Xiaoye's body. Bian Xiaoye immediately felt a warm current flowing through her body, but she didn't learn any cultivation technique, so she couldn't absorb it. If she directly absorbed the medicinal efficacy of a medicinal pill, she would probably explode on the spot. Yi Shiwen didn't stop Dendi Emperor. In the aspect of alchemy, even he admitted that he was inferior. Although his research was very deep, it was still a little lacking. We martial uncles indeed haven't prepared anything. These are 3 Thunder Origin Balls. I will give them to you. When you encounter danger, throw them out. Even an Emperor will be injured by the explosion, but don't use them lightly unless it's a critical moment," said Sky, shaking Lightning Emperor. "I don't have anything good to give you. I only have an armor that I obtained a long time ago. But it's a woman's armor, so I haven't used it. Now it's a good opportunity to give it to you." Fengyi Emperor waved his hand, and an armor appeared on Bian Xiaoya's body. It was a woman's armor, flowing with a kind of white luster. It was very mystical, and it didn't look clumsy on Bian Xiaoya. On the contrary, it outlined Bian Xiaoya's curvaceous figure. Besides, Fengyi Emperor had already refined it, so Bian Xiaoya could use it on the spot. With a thought, she kept it in her body. "If that's the case, then I will give you a human sovereign token. This was given to me by my teacher, the Sui Sovereign, within the territory of a human race. Seeing the token is the same as seeing the person. It can save you a lot of trouble. You can also use your Yuan Shun to summon a strand of Sui Sovereign's divine sense to help you 3 times. It's not a bad little thing. I didn't use it back then, so I will give it to you now." The human sovereign waved his hand, and an orange-yellow token flew straight into Bian Xiaoya's hand. Bian Xiaoya looked at the orange-yellow token in her hand. There was a word written on it. It was vivid and lifelike, as if it was coming to life. She didn't really understand what human sovereign, Sui Sovereign, and the like meant, but she knew it must be very powerful. She looked at Yi Shiwen with a questioning look in her eyes. She didn't know whether she should accept it or not. Yi Shiwen smiled and nodded. He didn't stop her because there was no need for him to do so. These things were precious, but they were just little things. To imperial emperors like them, they were nothing. Since they've given you a gift, I'll give you one as well. This Tai Sovereign Sword is for you to protect yourself. However, with your current strength, you won't be able to unleash the full power of the Tai Sovereign Sword, so I sealed it. In the future, as your strength increases, the seal will continue to be unlocked. There will come a time when you'll have a use for it. The Tai Sovereign Sword flew out from Yi Shiwen's body, turned into a sword ray, and disappeared into Bian Xiaoya's body. "Thank you, teacher. Thank you, martial uncles." Bian Xiaoya quickly cowed out. She didn't know how important the Tai Sovereign Sword was, but the other imperial emperors knew. This was a Dao weapon. After all, this place was different from the myriad worlds. Only the most outstanding descendants of the great sects could receive the help of a Dao weapon. Among the human race of the Fortune God dynasty, no one had such an honor because the human race didn't have any extra Dao weapons. But for Yi Shiwen, it was nothing. He had Dao weapons, and a lot of them. He was the kind of tycoon that everyone talked about. He had killed many imperial emperors, so he had a lot of Dao weapons in his hands. It was enough to open an exhibition, but he didn't have much use for them. He only used a few of them. It would be a waste if he didn't use the rest. So, he simply gave them to Bian Xiaoya to protect herself. He wasn't stingy in this aspect. Little Crescent Moon was protected by the ancient Taoist robe when she was born. Well, these things that we have given you are not for you to act tyrannically. We're just giving you a protective talisman. That's all. If you use these things to commit crimes, I will not spare you." Yi Shiwen warned. "Yes, teacher," Bian Xiaoya quickly replied. "By the way, the patrol envoy has been in closed-door training all this time. I wonder if you have heard of a piece of news?" Dinda suddenly said. "What news?" Yi Shiwen couldn't help but ask. He was indeed in closed-door training, so he didn't know anything. It's about the reopening of the Fortune God path. Chapter 32-24. News about the reopening of the path of creation. Dandy's words caused Yi Shiwen's complexion to change completely. Compared to the human emperor and the heaven-shaking thunder emperor, who were born and raised in the fortune realm, Yi Shiwen and Dandy were different. Although Finjaishi was not a native of the Fate realm, he was brought here by the Sui sovereign using a secret technique. He had never walked on the path of creation. In reality, he had arrived at the Fate realm in the blink of an eye and had no knowledge of the path of creation. Therefore, only Yishiwen would have such a reaction. What? Why has the path of creation reopened? Yishiwen asked immediately. Yishiwen had never forgotten about the path of fortune. In fact, it was the greatest humiliation of his life. He had been beaten by a mere avatar of Emperor Primordial Chaos and had been forced to flee in a sorry state. In fact, he had almost been swallowed alive by Emperor Primordial Chaos and had become nourishment to prolong his hunger. Yishiwen had always been a vengeful person. How could he not take revenge after suffering such a huge loss? However, he was still a fledgling and was probably not a match for the Primordial Emperor's avatar. Moreover, the rebirth of the Pantheon Venerable also made him deeply understand the terror of heavenly venerable experts. He guessed that Empyrean Lord Primordial Chaos had most likely stepped into that realm. Even if Pantheon Tianzuan was suppressed to the brink of death, once he truly erupted, slaughtering Empyrean lords would be no different from squashing a chick. Although there was no existence above the seventh realm, Yishiwen would not take chances. If he really had that power, it would undoubtedly be very dangerous. Therefore, Yishiwen didn't act blindly without thinking. Moreover, it would be useless even if he acted blindly without thinking. No one knew where the path of good fortune was, or when it would open. People from other worlds had to pass through the path of good fortune to come to the fortune world. Apart from that, no one knew where the path of good fortune was. It was as if it didn't exist in this dimension or dimension. The reason why the path of fortune was so famous in the fortune realm was not only because it was the only way to reach the fortune realm from other worlds, but more importantly, it was said that the secret of fortune was hidden in the path of fortune. In the past, the fortune heavenly monarch obtained the fortune from the path of fortune and became a peerless master in one fell swoop. He was invincible, and the creatures from other worlds that had been wreaking havoc in the fortune realm were all chased to the border, no longer able to stir up trouble in the fortune divine dynasty. With such an example, one could imagine how attractive the path of fortune was to the people of the fortune divine dynasty. It could be said that there was no one who didn't want to go there. For Yishiwen, the reopening of the path of creation might mean that he could return to the myriad heavens. Due to the unpredictable nature of the path of fortune, from ancient times until now, it had always been the emperors who received the summons of the path of fortune and came to the fortune divine dynasty. Very few people were able to return to the fortune divine dynasty. In fact, there had never been such a case. It was precisely because of this that many foreign emperor monarchs could peacefully cultivate in the fortune divine dynasty. Other than the fact that they could reach higher realms in the fortune divine dynasty, the most important reason was that they could not go back. Did they think that they were walking through the city gates? This news came from the fortune divine dynasty, said the Pill Emperor. It is said that the path of fortune appeared several thousand years ago. However, it wasn't wide open. Instead, it was just a crack like before. Only emperors could enter. Once a heavenly venerable entered, they would suffer the counterattack of the path of fortune's laws. This news has been confirmed by many people. Both the fortune divine dynasty and the foreign realms have begun to stir. Why does the path of fortune's laws prohibit heavenly venerables from entering? Asked Yishiwen. The Pill Emperor shook his head and said, "We don't know about this either. It is said that in the early years, heavenly venerables could also enter. The fortune divine monarch entered at that time and obtained the legendary path of fortune. However, for some unknown reason, all heavenly venerables could not enter anymore. There are even rumors that some heavenly venerables are trapped inside and unable to come out. However, we don't know whether this news is true or not. We came to the fortune divine dynasty very late. So many things are just legends." The human emperor, Fengyi Emperor, and the sky-shaking thunder emperor looked at each other in dismay. They were all emperors, but they could only be considered juniors among the emperors. Only those like the Battle Emperor were considered seniors. Therefore, they actually didn't know much more than the Dan Emperor about these things. Heavenly venerables are trapped inside? Yi Shiwen's eyelids twitched. He suddenly recalled that this rumor was consistent with his previous guess that the primordial Chaos Emperor had already entered the heavenly venerable realm. In other words, if the rumor was true, then it was highly likely that the primordial Chaos Emperor was a heavenly venerable who was trapped inside. However, Yishuin did not understand why the path of fortune would undergo such a huge change and cause a heavenly venerable to be trapped inside. Also, what method did the primordial Chaos Emperor use to interfere with the affairs of the various worlds? If his body was trapped, where would he be? There were too many questions in his mind, and he could not explain them in a short time. Moreover, if it was a few thousand years ago, didn't that mean that it was during the period when he was in the Stormy Sea region in Stormy City? Coupled with the fact that the Battle Emperor had left the Stormy Sea region at the last minute when a great war was imminent in Stormy Sea region. Could there be a connection? In fact, the Battle Emperor had left to deal with this matter. In addition, the Battle Emperor had asked him to stay in the human province to make more preparations and wait for news. If all of these things were connected, then the matter that the Battle Emperor had told him about was the reopening of the path of fortune. It seemed like the Fortune God dynasty had known about this a long time ago, but for some unknown reason, it had spread throughout the Fortune God dynasty recently. As for what secrets the Fortune God dynasty had, no one knew. Huang Xiaolong refused to believe that the Fortune God dynasty's secrets had been leaked out unintentionally. If the Fortune God dynasty's secrecy was only at this level, then it would have been riddled with holes long ago. However, even if there was a conspiracy, it should be an overt one. Even if they knew that there was something strange about it, there were not many people who could resist such a temptation. Everyone wanted to know what the rumor was that the Fortune God monarch had obtained the path of fortune. Yishuin felt a headache when he thought about it because he did not have any useful information. This was the disadvantage of having a shallow foundation. Even the history of the human race in the Fortune God dynasty was only a drop in the ocean when compared to the history of the entire Fortune God dynasty. If it was a colossus with a long history, they might have some records, and he could analyze some useful information from those records. I think there's something fishy about this matter. Yishuin looked at Dendi and said, I don't think it's right either. If the entrance to the crack was discovered thousands of years ago, why is it only announced now? Dinda said, he was not muddle-headed and naturally had his own judgment. But brother still wants to go. Yishuin said faintly. Dinda smiled and said, yes, who doesn't want to go? That is the legendary place to obtain the path of fortune. Previously, when we passed by the path of fortune, we did not know what it was. We only felt that it was terrifying. Now that we know, how can we let it go so easily? How terrifying! The human emperor suddenly interrupted and asked, what terrifying? What kind of terrifying could there be in the path of fortune? He was considered a new emperor monarch and did not directly experience the path of fortune like Yi Shiwen and Dendi. Therefore, he did not know anything about the path of fortune. Yi Shiwen said, I don't know if brother Dendi encountered the same thing as me. I can only tell you what happened to me. Yi Shiwen gave a rough account of his encounter on the path of creation. Suddenly, everyone took a deep breath. What Yi Shiwen described was too terrifying. For emperor monarchs like them, there were very few things in the world that could make them afraid. Not to mention the terrifying that Denda described. What kind of terrifying thing could make emperor monarchs afraid? Now, they finally understood. You mean, on the path of fortune, someone actually hunted down emperor monarchs and ate emperor monarchs? Ren Huang's eyes widened and said in disbelief. If this was said by someone else, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. However, it was a different matter when it was said by Yishuin. If what Yishuin said was true, then this matter was really terrifying. They were already standing at the top of millions of living beings. However, someone actually dared to hunt down emperor monarchs and even ate emperor monarchs. This completely subverted their worldview. What kind of terrifying existence was in there? Dendi also had a look of lingering fear on his face. He said, I did not personally experience what Brother Wu Di encountered. However, I felt an extreme sense of danger at that time. Therefore, I did not dare to stay for long and quickly left. However, I dare not forget that feeling for the rest of my life. Perhaps that was the primordial emperor that Brother Wu Di mentioned. In that case, the legend that a heavenly master was trapped on the path of fortune shouldn't be true, right? The sky-shaking Thunder Emperor suddenly said. Immediately, he felt a chill run down his spine. What had happened inside that even a celestial sovereign could do nothing about it? I originally wanted to go and take a look. However, it seems that I'd better not go. Just listening to it makes me feel that it's too dangerous. What kind of secret is there on the path of fortune? Too many things have been buried in time. I'm afraid that no one except the Fortune God dynasty knows about it. Yishuan said with lingering fear. Chapter 32:25. Thousands of emotions flashed through Yishuan's mind. No one knew how many secrets were buried in the path of creation. Even the origin of the fortune realm seemed to be closely related to the path of creation. Is the path of creation open now? Yishuan asked. It'll take another 100 years. There's only a small crack now. No one can enter. According to other people's calculations, it may take another 100 years to completely form. Dinda said. Yishuan paused and asked again. Do you know where the crack will open this time? It's not in the Fortune God dynasty, but in the Netherworld Sea region in the north. Dinda said. How could it be there? That's troublesome. Human Sovereign said with a frown. A lot of information about the Netherworld Sea region also appeared in Yishuan's mind. In the surroundings of the Fortune God dynasty, the Tempest Sea region was in the east and the Netherworld Sea region was in the north. The south and west were not seas, but vast continents that were connected to the Fortune God dynasty. It was also a place where fierce battles were taking place. In the surroundings of the Fortune God dynasty, the Netherworld Sea region was undoubtedly the most peculiar and also the most powerful. It was not that the Netherworld Sea region was more powerful, but it was not like other places where the Netherworld Sea region was in a state of disunity without any cohesion. Within the Netherworld Sea region, there was a supreme existence, Empyrean Nether. Since ancient times, he had ruled over the Netherworld Sea region. Nowadays, very few people had seen his existence, but everyone knew that his existence had never disappeared. Therefore, it was the most difficult place to infiltrate in the entire outer domain. That existence was like the time when Pan-Tian ruled the Tempest Sea region. It was just that Pan-Tian had fallen, while Nether Heavenly Lord was still alive and well. There was a huge difference between them. Although they did not know who was stronger between Nether Heavenly Lord and Pan-Tian, it was already half clear from the current situation. It was because of this that everyone was so worried. It was not a big deal for them to invade the Stormy Sea region, because there was no Empyrean-level existence in the Stormy Sea region. Even if there was one, there was no one who could unify the entire Stormy Sea region. However, it was completely different in the Netherworld Sea region. Empyrean Nether was the sole ruler in a supreme existence. As long as Empyrean Nether was present, no one else would have a chance. Just breaking through the layers of blockade of those foreign creatures was not an easy thing to do. Yes, I also wanted to join in the fun, but I thought that it was in the Netherworld Sea region. I'm afraid that I won't have the chance. If it was in the Stormy Sea region, even if it was a dragon's lair or a tiger's lair, I would still dare to explore it. But it's different here. Dan Emperor sighed and said. His expression was a bit sad. I can't do it. However, you're different. Considering your strength, it shouldn't be a problem for you. Dan Emperor looked at Yishuan and said, Emperor. Yishuan nodded and responded noncommittally. There was no need to mention the dangers in the Netherworld Sea region. He could already imagine it. Now, did he really have to take such a big risk for the path of creation? Obtain the path of creation? He knew very well that he was only half a step away from entering the ninth realm. The safest way was to honestly cultivate in seclusion and wait for the day of the breakthrough. Once he succeeded, he would become one of the strongest supreme rulers in the world and step into the ranks of the top experts. As long as he accumulated enough time, he would have the opportunity to enter the heavenly Lord realm. That would be the supreme ruler and the ruler of everything. However, the impulse in his heart told him that he didn't know when the next crack on the road of fortune would appear. In the Fortune Divine dynasty, the last time a crack on the road of fortune had appeared was tens of millions of years ago. For an emperor, this period of time wasn't something he couldn't wait for, but it was too far away for him. In fact, it was so far away that he could not even imagine it. In the path of creation, there were not only enemies like the primordial Chaos Emperor, but also the legendary path of creation. If the fate creation heavenly monarch obtained it, he would become invincible. No one would not be tempted. That was the strongest existence known to all. No one would not want to become such an existence. When the time comes, I will go and take a look. As for you, if you want to go, you can also go. However, I'm afraid I can't guarantee your safety. Yishuan glanced at Emperor Dan and said, he knew very well that because this place was within the Netherworld Sea region, there would probably be layers upon layers of seals. At that time, it wouldn't just be imperial monarchs who would be able to enter the crack, but perhaps even outstanding imperial monarchs. 7th, 8th, and even 9th realms wouldn't be rare. Under such circumstances, no matter how conceited he was, it was impossible for him to truly feel that he was invincible throughout the world. Emperor Dan was silent for a moment before he said, anyway, there are still 100 years. I still have time to think about it slowly. I will tell you when the time comes. These 100 years would be the final struggle of the Pill Emperor. He was still struggling. Should he go or not? If he went, he might die on the path of fortune. But if he didn't go, it would be a pity. The desire in his heart wouldn't be satisfied. Well, that's fine too. Yishuan nodded. The others also did not show any desire to go. It seemed that this time, it should be Yishuan's matter. However, Yishuan was already used to it. Everyone was very clear about the dangers involved. Therefore, they felt that it was normal for Emperor Dan to hesitate. In fact, they even directly gave up on their own plans to go. It was too dangerous. That was a place that could bury and restrain supreme existences at the heavenly master level. If they were in Emperor Dan's place, they might not have a good time either. Everyone chatted for a while longer before dispersing and returning to their respective residences on Mount Buzhou. These two incidents were undoubtedly extremely shocking to them. Whether it was Bien Xiaoye's reincarnation, which was related to the mysteries of life and death, or the many rumors on the path of creation about the heavenly venerables that were buried there, the place that even heavenly venerables were said to be living in, had completely overturned their worldviews. They needed some time to calm down. After everyone left, Yishuan called Bien Xiaoye in front of him and said, I think you should know why I accepted you as a disciple previously. I know. It's just that I have doubts in my heart. Is I really the reincarnation of Lady Mannion? Bien Xiaoye also couldn't hide the surprise and shock in her heart. Although there had always been things like rebirth and reincarnation in the legends of the older generation, it was only a rumor after all. In fact, no one had really seen it. After reincarnation, no one had ever returned. Therefore, although she believed in it, it was impossible to see it usually. But now, she got a possible answer. How could she not be shocked? Whether it is or not, even I'm not sure now. But no matter whether it is or not, there is one thing you have to understand. Even if you're really a reincarnated body, you don't have to worry about it, because you are you, and she is she. After all, it is different. Every life should be lived to its fullest, just like a blooming flower. Don't tell me that you won't bloom just because there is already a similar flower, Yishuan said faintly. Even he wasn't very clear about Bien Xiaoye being the reincarnation of Lady Mannion, so he wouldn't tell Bien Xiaoye about this speculation. There was no need at all. Disciple understands. Bien Xiaoye nodded and seemed to understand a little. It was just that she didn't know how long it would take for her to truly understand the true meaning of it. After all, the person who reincarnated in the legend was none other than herself and no one else. Okay, then let's turn this page. If there's anything you don't understand in the future, you can come and ask me. There aren't so many rules in our lineage. The biggest rule is that we can't deceive our ancestors, said Yishiwen. In fact, this rule wasn't too significant, because with his current strength, even if the disciple wanted to deceive the ancestors, it was useless. He would only slap the disciple to death. It was impossible for the disciple to pose any threat to him. However, the most important thing was that there was such a rule. Disciple understands. Disciple's father was saved by master. Disciple can't repay you even if I work like an ox or a horse. How dare I deceive the ancestors? Said Bien Xiaoye quickly with fear and trepidation. Yishuan couldn't help but smile and said, Silly girl, I don't need you to do anything for me. As far as I'm concerned, it's the most important thing for you to cultivate properly and pass on my mantle. It's best if you do that. You're worthy of me. For an emperor lord like Yishuan, would he have any ulterior motives for Bien Xiaoye? For a master, the biggest intention was to pass on his mantle, carry forward his great path, and bring glory to the family. This was the biggest reward. Yes, disciple obeys. But can disciple ask something? Bien Xiaoye looked up at Yishuan cautiously and asked. Ask away, said Yishuan. Master, are you going to teach me demonic techniques? Said Bien Xiaoye. You can actually guess it. You're quite clever. Indeed, I do intend to teach you demonic techniques. Although it is different from my human clan, it is also an extremely powerful supreme technique. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.